Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook stream about Raised by Wolves. Raised by Wolves, the Ridley Scott directed, director of Alien, etc. science fiction show. It's also about that show, android parents. That's what the show is about, actually. Raising kids in the 2020s and why there is no Western school that gives children the education that they need. So, before I forget, don't forget to grab the Neofeud if you have not yet. Support us through direct support at Ko-Fi. Become a Patreon patron and or share the stream, like this stream, grab some of the music, etc., and help us keep doing the education of the future children and adults as well that we try to do here at the Silver Spook Hui/cooperative. But anyways, so I'll start with the show stuff. So anyways, Raised by Wolves is a show that you can watch on is it on Apple? I believe it's on Apple. I could be mistaken. But Raised by Wolves is a show that basically is a sci-fi show from the director of Alien, actually Gladiator, but Alien, and worked on Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and the whole Aliens and Predator series, but mostly the Alien movies. Ridley Scott. And if you've ever seen Alien, I do recommend it. It's one of the great sci-fi franchises. He also directed Blade Runner, so in the cyberpunk sci-fi genre, it is the legendary film that made that entire visual cinematic like film grammar was established in movies like Blade Runner. So he Ridley Scott's a very, very well known and well respected director in the film buff world. But Raised by Wolves feels like an Alien movie to be, really just kind of my first impressions of it. It's like it feels like the android in it. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Try to just in case people don't know. I think a lot of people watch this stream probably know, but what Alien and Alien universe is about. But if you don't, Ridley Scott was asked, "Is this movie set in the world of aliens and Predator and etc.? Is there a Weyland-Yutani Corporation in it?" I think Ridley was asked that question at a like a conference Q&A session, and he said that's an interesting question, but technically it's not. We are not formally setting it in the Alien universe. But he thought about it. You could see that he hadn't really thought that way. But when you watch the show, you can definitely feel that coming through with the color of the android. The character in the center there, by the way, is an android similar to Ash from Alien 1, played by Ian Holm. Similar to Bishop from Aliens, etc. They have white blood. They have white fluid for blood, basically. They have it's very like 70s Westworld looking inside, which kind of like organic-ish with fiber optic plasticky wires and flashing lights. They very much look like kind of like Darth Vader's interior, but more viscous and organic, let's say. And so the androids that Ridley Scott kind of pioneered in Alien, and they have a very gross out factor to it. Alien was very much a sci-fi space horror, kind of really pioneered that, on spacecraft, interstellar travel. There's visiting other alien planets with xenomorphic organisms, specifically xenomorphs, obviously, that reproduce by their 10 fingered scorpions with urethra-like proboscis that clomp onto your face and insert their children down your throat. Insert their embryos down your throat, and then a few days later, your chest explodes, and a acid for blood, razor sharp toothed, giant insectile horror nightmare creature comes bursting out of your chest. So Alien was very much it was very horror. It was kind of like the horror of a lot of it was around the horror, and it was based on H.R. Geiger's, and he was a Swedish or was it Swiss. He was a European artist who had extreme night terrors constantly, and he drew the Necronomicon. He had this very biomechanical art style, but involved a lot of fusion of the mechanical and the robotic with the organic. Some of this artwork look like hospital X-rays, but turned into Sistine Chapel level detailed art pieces. I'll see if I get like you know Geiger, because Geiger is everything in Alien was inspired by Geiger's art, even though they kind of ripped him off and left him out to dry. And so he drew the original Alien concept. He came up with the concepts for multiple films, I believe, but this is the concept for the engineer, the pilot for the alien craft in the original Alien. But anyways, so the Alien was definitely like a horror. It was a sci-fi horror set in space. Kind of, there was a lot of Star Wars. I was, space. And last week we were talking about what were we talking about last week? Last week was space, Empire versus Multipole, but we're talking about Foundation, right? So, and how Foundation is a show that is set in a kind of it's space Empire in a way that's more Eastern and more based, let's say, than Dune, Star Wars, that basically ripped off Asimov, who was a Russian Jew. He was from the East technically, although he was lived much of his life in the West. And so Alien was that kind of space. Star Trek, of course, came out after that time, but Alien was kind of the first that kind of took that in. It took the space sci-fi in a horror direction, and so the androids, and so that's a long backstory. I can go on that forever. This stream is not about that. But one point that I would bring up is that if you look at the aliens closely, there's a lot of reproductive organs. Like the back of the alien head is looks like a phallus, with the head of a male genitalia, and then you have these kind of imagery of. Ridley Scott drew a lot of like kind of biomechanical sexualized imagery. There's a lot of deeply sexual imagery, reproductive imagery. Maybe he was just really thirsty. I don't know. He's really horny and pent up. Maybe he was an incel. There was no such thing as those at that time, where they didn't have that name. But it's like this is some of Geiger's imagery. I don't know if this is NSFW, but all of this is like horror. So but but a lot of it has to do, and Alien had to do with reproduction, right? Alien had to do with Geiger's Alien, or Ridley Scott's Alien, based on Geiger's artwork, had to do with is a kind of allegory of the horror of parenthood, the horror of when you become a parent. It requires, there's intercourse, and then there is the child, the gamete, the zygote, the sperm travels up the inside of your body. Now, from a lower cavity rather than from an upper cavity, right? And then it goes into your goes into your womb. The sperm finds, millions of them find their way into an egg. The egg, through the miracle of life, whether that's I'm not going to get into abortion debate, but the egg and the sperm fertilize. That creates a new organism, a third organism that is not the mother and the father, that is taking some of the chromosomes from one parent and some of the genetic deoxyribonucleic acid encoded information from the other parent, and then folds those together and creates a new thing inside of the mother's womb, and then that or the parent's womb, whichever gender that parent happens to be, and then that causes the 9 months of gestation, and then you know that process, but that whole process, right, is mirrored in Alien, but in a horror nightmare way, and that was like that was stated by some of the creative people who worked on Alien and Aliens as well, which is James Cameron. I'm not going to get into discussions about the indigenous appropriation in Avatar 2 because I see that's the topic. But as an indigenous person, I do have some questions for Mr. Cameron. But in Aliens, also, you said specifically it was about Ellen Ripley. Just to kind of, I'm going to get to. I swear to God, I swear to Jobs. I swear to Gates. I swear to Creator. I'm going to get to Raised by Wolves, but I think it's worth looking at this because the topic is about raising children, parenthood generally, child rearing, the process of procreation, and a lot of Ridley Scott stuff is deeply embroiled in this for whatever reason, especially stuff to do with the Alien universe. And so I think James Cameron actually said when he worked on Ellen Ripley's storyline in Aliens, where she goes through this horrible process where she survives. She's the last surviving member. Let me just get the plot real quick. Alien. Ellen Ripley in Deep Space. She is the crew of the commercial starship, the Nostromo. That's actually a reference to Neofeud 2. The main character of Neofeud 2 is named Nostromo, which is actually an Alien reference, but that's also goes back to another Inception level of references within references of the book by Conrad. No, it's not. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm missing all the names of all of my people right now. But it was a reference to a book, Heart of Darkness, the writer of the Heart of Darkness, and about colonialism, about imperialism, and that does come up in Nostromo's. That does come up in Aliens as well. Weyland Yutani and imperial colonization is a whole imperialism, capitalism, and those systems and corporate. Joseph Conrad, I can't remember these people's names. Yeah, Joseph Conrad. He wrote. I think was it called Nostromo? Let me just double check that. I'm like Joseph Conrad. I don't want to have like a 25,000 Silver Spook. I don't have 25,000 Silver Spook tabs this early in the morning, but we should probably get this right. So Joseph Conrad, who wrote Heart of Darkness, which is what Apocalypse Now, Vietnam era, the most anti-war film that would ever come out of the West, which is to say barely passable, like 2 out of 10 in terms of anti-war. But Joseph Conrad was the writer of Heart of Darkness, and he also wrote the story. Is it Nostromo? Or am I mistaken? Yeah. Nostromo is the name of the novel, and then Nostromo, which is a novel that talks. I have a whole stream just about that. I can't remember where that was, but I talked about the Nostromo and how it was based on the colonization, and it's a story about somebody who is on a ship, who is plundering South America and silver, and the whole story revolves around trying to find all of the silver that was made after the genocide of indigenous South American peoples using the enslaved indigenous peoples throwing down silver mines and dying in mass and starving to death under the colonial rule. So long story short, I would recommend that's another just offshoot. You can check out Heart of Darkness and or Nostromo, and then you can watch Apocalypse Now, and then you can actually play something actually anti-colonial like any Silver Spook game, like Decolonators. Decolonators is better than Nostromo and Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now. I just want to say that it's more based in all of those things. But anyways, it's not made by Westerners who don't have any schools that give children the education that they need. But anyway, I'm like way off my topic. So this is a bunch of references I wanted to cycle back towards. Nostromo is the ship which Nostromo, before people all quit the stream, Nostromo is a ship that Ellen Ripley is on in the Alien show. The Nostromo crew is awakened from their cryosleep capsules. Halfway through their journey home to investigate a distress call from an alien vessel, terror begins when the crew encounters a nest of eggs inside the alien ship. An organism from inside an alien egg leaps out, attaches itself to one of the crew, causing him to fall into a coma. And then basically, Ellen Ripley, he comes out of the coma. He fails to go into quarantine, which has there's a whole stream just about the pitfalls of failing to do lockdown, contact testing, and tracing, and following medical protocols, including quarantine. I think I did a whole stream on Alien and the Western capitalist failure to prioritize health and take basic pandemiological protocols seriously, or have either the will and or the capacity to implement them. But after the failure and the xenomorphic creature is installed in the chest of the crew members, it explodes. Kane discovers So Kane, after ejecting the body out of an airlock, this alien creature quickly grows into a huge 6 foot tall, acid for blood, incredibly hostile thing that can crawl on the ceiling. It can eat you it bites your head off with one chomp of its jaws. It has an inner jaw. It's a nightmarish creature that only wants to eat and to kill. And so and Ellen Ripley is the only surviving crew member. She's she's the final girl, in the sense of we have a whole praise stream about final girls, but Ellen Ripley is the final girl in the 80s, late 70s, 80s horror movie, like Sarah Connor in the show Alien. But in an Aliens, Ellen comes back, and a lot of that one definitely even more so has even more to do with like children. Ellen had a daughter, right? That's the beginning of her story, right? Let's see. Ellen Ripley daughter scene, in Aliens. Oh, and there's actually Amanda is a character in the video game entry Alien Isolation, if I'm not mistaken. That's actually Ellen Ripley's daughter that you never get to see in the Aliens movie. And so in Aliens, Ellen Ripley, right, played by Sigourney Weaver, right, she is informed by this creep, Mr. Burke, right? He's Mr. Corporate. He's Mr. Corporate suit boy. Ellen Ripley wakes up like 70 years later. She is traveling through space for 7 years. Actually, that has a similar Foundation has that element where people are traveling through space for 120 years and then they get woken up a century later. Ellen Ripley is traveling through cryogenic stasis through space for almost over half a century, 60 something years, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Don't remember the exact number. I'm not that hardcore nerd about Alien versus Predator universe lore. But Ellen is awoken, and upon awakening, for reasons that I won't go into at this moment, she's informed that she had a daughter, right? Or I believe she already had the daughter, but her daughter, right, who was a little kid when the events of Alien 1 happened, and she's been asleep in cryo so long that her daughter has now lived her entire life and died, right? And this is a picture of Ellen Ripley's daughter, right? And she looks at it and she starts crying. She's like, "No, I told her I was gonna be there for her birthday," and it's just like, so Ellen Ripley is denied access. Ellen Ripley is denied, right, the opportunities and the joys and the ups and downs and she's denied her entire parenthood of her own daughter, right? That's actually central to that story and the character Ellen Ripley, right? He's speaking of parenting and raising children and the joys of being a caregiver, being a nurturer, right? Watching your young sapling wobbling around, clumsily bumping into your Rockstar soda cans or Monster, or actually unbranded anti-capitalist juice with high amounts of taurine and caffeine, and knocking your stuff down and chewing on your cables if you like four-legged, fluffy, and floppy-eared children. Or there is the urge to get pets is part of that, is to have something to nurture and to raise, right? Very different from a human, though. Let's be real clear about that. It's not the same. It's a whole nother level of responsibility, and it's a whole different thing. But the urge, the motherly urge to raise, right, to produce, to expand the flock, to expand the garden, right, to reproduce, to make more. And it's actually watching the plants. You kind of can see this happening when I'm outside in the garden often. Speaking of the garden, this reminds me of the fountain so much. But this shot right here, by Darren Aronofsky. But the plants, like when we were watching, me and the kids. Speaking of parenting, we were out in the pluricrop, decolonized monocrop lawn that we're working on. Right, that's part of the raising and education of the kids at Silver Spook Hui. Is we have Hawaiian, we have Okinawan, we have South Central indigenous potatoes, sweet potato. We have kalo, which is our Hawaiian staple plant that goes back to our Asian relatives, right? And we're all trying to raise all of these plants in our garden that the kids are helping to nurture. So there's another level of raising to that, right? Raising a garden, tending and taking the weeds out, and hoping and praying that nobody steps on your poor little kalo. The kids step on one of the kalo. I said, okay, wait, you guys don't step in this little dirt patch where we just recently weed whacked in, and we had to take a big pickaxe and a shovel, and they helped me shovel it. I said, don't step on this because we're gonna kill all the baby kalo, and then we won't have the chance to nurture it and watch it grow. Right. But anyway, so while we're out in that patch watching the plants, you notice that, like, for example, kalo, when it's a very dry and a period of time, the plants will actually pull back into the corm. They'll stop putting out leaves, and they'll stop putting out the heart-shaped leaves. They'll stop putting out extra foliage, and they'll kind of withdraw in. And then when it's the time this looks like it's a safe time. There's a lot of water. It's wet. Kalo needs large amounts of water. So you don't want to know what a kalo plant. This is a kalo plant. The kalo plant is staple food. It needs lots and lots and lots of water. Much more water than the average plant. And so because they're used to living, and there's different strains. Just drier land substrains, and then there's others that were cultivated by Native Hawaiians for thousands of years, for more wetland regions, right? With the lo'i that we use. And so this kalo plant, and the word ohana, Lilo and Stitch and Moana, which is the bad Western capitalist ripoff, colonizer versions with billions of dollars to make fancy blockbuster movies about our stuff. But the word ohana, right, means family, but it comes from the oha is the center of the corm, and the children. Right. Speaking of raising children, the children of the kalo plant come off from the central corm as small offshoots. Like there's a little picture. I don't have a good picture there. Let's see if I can get a better picture there. Yeah, you see the oha here, the bud of the corm. And the ohana is all of the central corm plus all of the children coming off of the central parent corm, right? So that's what ohana comes from the plant. And kalo is, in our own mythology, in Native Hawaiian mythology, is our elder brother. But anyways, so back to the, and so the kalo don't put out any, they don't put out their leaves and their branches and their offshoots until the time is right, and they feel safe, and they feel like, it's just a lot of water, or there's either too much water or there's not enough water, and they go, okay, now is the time. Now we're going to put out we're going to extend our family, and we're going to put our young out there. We're going to raise them up, and we're going to build them up, because now is a safe time. Now is a safe space. Here is a place where we can do this. And then they, and I was trying to tell the kids about this, and this is why watch how the plants grow. You can learn things about that. You can learn things about yourself, and you can learn things about, obviously, the plants, biology, biology and nutrition, obviously, because this is the food that we're eating, and why this food is better than some processed red dye, 40 filled, hyper sodiumified, diabetes level of sugar content, food desert stuff you can get, like where I'm from. As a native Hawaiian, we're all dumped in the ghetto and die at the age of 39 from eating too much spam and Fanta fruit punch. That's how they kill indigenous people. So the process of raising of the future, right, is a thing. What I wanted to say with the color is that it feels this urge to suddenly, they still, like, if you watch, like, if there's a lot of people that are having children, right, and even trees. There's a book, Braiding Sweetgrass, that I've gone off about several times, which talks about there are pheromones and there are other signals that trees using mycelium and like neural, not almost like neural mass, multi-thousand mile wide neural networks, not like the brain, but not so different, that extend from trees through fungal systems and mushrooms, etc. And when one tree begins to go into a reproductive phase, like the pecan trees start fruiting and start dropping nuts, all the other trees will do it at the same time, right? And it's because humans, when one human sees another human, especially one that's a close friend or relative, having children, there is this tendency to suddenly all fruit at the same time, and there's some neurological and biological and sociological science behind that. And plants do that, and the more I've been watching our garden more and more closely, trying to recapture our non-broken Kanaka indigenous ways, and talking to other indigenous peoples around the planet Earth on all continents. There is a lot that can be learned by watching the elder relatives that are the animals and the plants. But the point I wanted to get to was that when you are, I'm sorry. So Ellen Ripley, right? And so she's what she's denied. It's kind of spiraling around this topic. What Ellen Ripley was denied in Aliens is the opportunity to have, and there's huge amounts of serotonin and endorphins. Like when a baby comes out, skin to skin contact, and as the baby is, against you, when it first takes its breath, is nuzzling against mommy and daddy, all the oxytocin and all of the serotonin is pumping, all the feel good endorphins and chemicals are moving, and the connections are being made, right? That's neurochemically, and it's a little bit clinical, but we're talking about androids with digital, syrup for blood that spout motor oil, raising children in vats. So I don't see how we can. It's hard to get more clinical than that. But anyways, but all the oxytocin and all of the there's the holding. There is a biological, and then there's a spiritual, and then there's a neurochemical reality to all of that, right? And the process of being with your children, being with my own children, and being able to share time with them, eat with them, teach them things, listen to them laugh and listen to them run and scramble around. All of that is part of existence and reality, and some of the most happy and pleasurable times, especially for people who are inclined to have children or want to raise children of some type, 2-legged, 4-legged, 2-winged, right? 6-finned, turtle-shelled, or otherwise. I'm not saying you should adopt Donatello. That's not what that meant. I meant people who have box turtles. Anyways, you can't raise Donatello because he's a cartoon character. Mommy, she doesn't think anything because she's just a piece of plastic. That's the Aliens quote. So Ellen Ripley was denied the ability to have her entire life with her daughter. She's denied her entire motherhood. Not by anyone in particular, but kind of by Will and Yutani, if you want to be throwing around accusations, the corporation. But she simply is like in space because of a terrible xenomorphic atrocity and catastrophe engineered by the corporation with the help of the malicious android that is doing the bidding of the HAL inside of a IBM corporate. It's like a FANG corporation with HAL inside it. and then an Android version. That's what Ian Holmes' Android is doing. But because of those events, Ellen Ripley is like misses 70 years of the world and floating off in the middle of the galaxy somewhere, off the shoulder of Orion, and she is near the Tannhauser Gate, and she is all in the Ridley Scott universe, which also includes Soldier, starring Kurt Russell in the mid-90s. So Ripley is very upset and like torn up, and that's really what a lot of Aliens is Ripley. Well, many things happening. One of them is she's trying to stop these idiot, Western politicians and corporate heads and the Weyland-Yutani who are trying to go back to the colony, right? Let me just recap the little plot here. I swear to God I want to get to Raised by Wolves, but I feel like this is worth it. The Aliens plot follows 57, that's what, 57 years. But in that time, her daughter has lived and died. And then she comes to, right? On LV-46, she is part of a Space Marine team. So that has a very Apocalypse Now feeling to it, because it's Marines. It has a very Apocalypse Now because it's Marines going into a territory with very skilled guerrilla entities that are very good at hiding and subterfuge and shadow warfare. It's part of Aliens is an entire Vietnam War spin-off. It's a Vietnam War allegory in space. It has a very Apocalypse Now sort of elements to it in that sense. A bunch of American soldiers show up and get their ass kicked by Vietnamese guerrilla fighters. That's what I mean. And the Space Marines find game over, man. Game over. That like literally they go in and they get their asses handed to them. They think they're going to be the best thing, and since they're like the ultimate badasses with nuclear bombs and supersonic rail guns and Gatling guns and all the bombs and all the sharp sticks, everything. They got knives, they got laser swords, they got everything, and then they get their ass kicked by the native population, right? Actually, there's a lot of Avatar elements in that sense, but anyways, I'm on too many tangents. The Marines find only one survivor, 9-year-old girl named Newt Carrihan, but even these battle-hardened Marines, with all of their latest weaponry, are no match for the hundreds of aliens that have invaded the colony. So there's a colony, and all of the people have been turned into aliens. So that's in Alien 1, there's just one alien. In Aliens, there's many, many, many aliens. Now you see why they call it aliens, plural. But a lot of Aliens, revolves around Ripley with trying to some of it is she's just trying to survive and trying to tell these Marines, you're in for a much more than you think you're in for. You got to take this more seriously. It's a lot like Prey, which is the Predator show with an indigenous main character. You remember this one? Prey 2022. Prey, right? It's a lot like Prey in that sense, which Prey evolves is in the same Alien versus Predator universe. Really, the Predators are one of the extraterrestrial races and species in the Alien and Predator universe. And so in Prey, it's the main character is an indigenous woman in the 1700s, where aliens, science fictional alien hunter predators come down from space, and colonizers and indigenous are in their struggle, and colonizers are invading and killing indigenous people and slaughtering the buffalo, etc., etc. And the predators come down, and in the middle of that fight, and she is the final girl in this horror show. The main indigenous character in Prey. But it's similar where the other boys are trying, the dudes are kind of not listening to hey, we have this threat. We have to take it seriously. We have to track it and learn more about it so that we can stop the great monster out there, right? That's even more deadly than even the colonizer monsters, and which is saying a lot because they're pretty deadly, those Europeans. And so the Predator, and so in Aliens is very similar, where oh, you see, I've Silver Spook has gone nuclear. I've gone post nuclear with my tabs. There you go. In Predator, and so in Aliens, Ripley is trying to tell the governments and the Marines and the forces that are there to save the colonists, right? Let me see if I can get a picture of the Aliens, Marines with Hicks and Private Hudson. So the Marines are like, we're gonna go get all of these bugs. Oh, it's just another bug hunt. Yeah, we're gonna go get some. We're gonna go into we're gonna go into Hanoi. We're gonna go into Saigon. We're gonna go get some. We're gonna go into Iraq. We're gonna go in Afghanistan. We're gonna go kick their ass, man. I mean, when shooting from afar, the West in the U.S. they do pretty good, with their British cannons and their American B-52s, dropping bombing places into the Stone Age. When they get on the ground, they're not too good though. Getting their asses kicked in Ukraine right now, by denazifying, demilitarizing forces. But the Americans go in, they're gonna kick some ass. Ripley is like, you should be not so gung ho, and you should. It's also all dudes. That's actually very important. Lots of kind of toxically masculine dudes who are like, we're gonna go save some of them colonists from their virginity. That's like one of the comments. There's all of this, like, have anybody ever mistaken you for a man? Like, no, have you? And there's this kind of like Private Hudson back and forth with what the hell, Vasquez. Yeah, Vasquez, who is a woman who is very fit and carries a large smart gun. And so, but they're just like Marines, but they're kind of rah. We're gonna go get. It's a very toxically masculine, which is just normal Western culture, really. But certainly the ones that do the fighting for them. It's very Azov Battalion attitude they have. It's very Nazi Germany attitude they have. Who did the fighting for the Anglo-Saxons in the mid 20th century? So they are going in, and Ellen's like, wait, you got to slow down and don't do things with your testosterone addled locker room brain. You got to like think and be more scientific about this, actually. Like in Prey and like in Alien 1 also, actually. That's the same similar thing happens. And so Ripley's like, I've already been, this is not my first rodeo. to use people say normalize white people using white slang, like, hey pal, and it's not my first rodeo. So anyways, Ellen Ripley is like, I have done this before. Don't go in guns blazing. What are you doing? You shouldn't do this and you should do that. They don't listen to her because she's not a Marine, right? And she's not a dude, and she's not all big and tough, and so that's the whole part of it. And then they all get their asses kicked, just like in Prey, and just like in actually multiple of the Alien and Predator movies. And then the fighting is left to Ellen to basically be the final girl, as all the dudes are dead. And so, that's part of it. But then another part is like, as I said, Ellen is looking, Ellen is again denied her daughter and the chance to be a parent to her daughter for that 57 years that she was gone, right? And so then she discovers this character, Newt, that's the girl. Newt is the last survivor of this massacre that has happened at the LV-426. What was the name of that colony? It had a name and I missed it. But the colony on LV-426, the planet with the aliens, is wiped out except for this girl who has built a little nest of toys and the last remaining bits of Vienna sausage and crackers and MREs. She's like barely surviving in a little vent, like a vent shaft, like crawling through the very small shafts you can fit in, that maybe the aliens are too big to fit in, or they just haven't found her yet. So she's been surviving by hiding and basically being as quiet and as being as smart as possible on that in that colony. And Ripley discovers Newt, who is terrified and in post-traumatic stress. Obviously, all of her family have all been, everyone she knows and loved is all dead, and everyone has been killed. Her brother, her mother, her father, and she doesn't want to talk about it. And so Ripley discovers Newt, and Ripley takes on, she doesn't really say that, but you can see that Ripley adopts, right? The Hawaiian word would be like hanai, but because adoption has its own Western context, but Western connotations, which are often negative, rightfully so. Ripley becomes a surrogate mother for Newt, and it like protects Newt and is trying to keep Newt safe and trying to raise Newt, trying to nurture Newt, and Newt becomes like the daughter that Ripley never had, in a lot of ways. And then the story unfolds. I'm not going to give you the whole story, but and there's a scene at the very end where at the very end of Aliens, and there's that line where there's a queen alien, right, which is like a 20-foot tall, massive, ultra version of the already nightmarish, almost unkillable xenomorph creatures, right? And then the queen, and it is a queen, it is a female as well. The queen alien, this is her Ripley fighting the queen. Also, the queen is laying thousands and thousands and thousands of these eggs that hatch, put out those 5-fingered facehuggers, like nightmare genital Frankenstein creatures that jump on your face, lay their eggs on your throat, etc. Use your body as a incubation chamber for their young. And so the queen is laying all these thousands of eggs. Queen is also a mother, so it's really a giant catfight between the two mothers. The Ripley, the human final girl badass, and then the queen alien of the universe. I almost quoted Kerrigan from StarCraft. But anyways, and so it is a fight between two mothers, both of whom have lost children, and both of whom are trying to protect they're actually both trying to protect their children, if you think about it. Because Ripley takes a flamethrower, in Aliens, Ripley takes a flamethrower, burns every last one of the queen's eggs. That's her children, right? Throws a bunch of explosive pulse rifle grenade, like entire boxes full of pulse rifle grenades, blows up all of the eggs, kills as many eggs as possible, right? Or basically all of them, of the alien queen. And now the queen is, of course, incredibly upset. But also Ripley and all of her friends and all of her family have all been killed in various ways and suffered and died because of the aliens. And so this is really, it's a fight between two mothers, right? And Newt is being chased around by the queen at that point, and the queen is ripping up, the panels of the floor as Newt is scrambling underneath the ground, underneath the tubes, trying to hide from the queen. And then alien comes out in the power loader, and they have this huge, epic final boss fight at the end of Aliens. But what it is a fight between two mothers, right, who are trying to protect their children. And that's actually, like, that's why it's very the child rearing, the process of parenthood and procreation, both in the bodily horror sense of, like, the horrors of children. I mean, becoming a parent is a scary thing. You're going to take your life. A lot of people die in childbirth because, literally chemically and biologically, there is, the parent organism, that is the mother, is in some ways is in a war with the fetus, that is another alien organism. And there's scientific evidence that shows that like the resources are actually being taken from the mother for the baby, and the baby is actually altering by it emitting its own chemicals and its own hormones and such. It's actually altering the mother in different ways, and sometimes one or none survive, or sometimes one or the other survives. And so it is a scary, and also it's just scary because your life as you thought it was, right, before you have children, when you have children, your whatever life you thought you had, or whoever you were before, is kind of dies in a certain way. Even if you don't physically perish and die a horrible death in the way that a chest burster comes out, right, with this nightmare creature. And I'm sorry, I lost my alien. Where's my alien? It's even if you don't die because a nightmare creature comes out and kills you and exploding in your guts, but it's all allegorical in a lot of senses. I mean, obviously it's a fun sci-fi movie, but it's also there's some other allegorical storytelling happening there on another level, which is that like you are now the parent of this other entire life. You have a responsibility to this other to this other entity, right? That in some ways is an alien entity because it's not you, but also you have responsibility. And I mean, biological scientists like Richard Dawkins would argue it's the selfish gene that is like, the genes are actually manipulating you into taking all of your resources and energy and dumping them into the new sequential vessel for the gene that is actually running everything, and it's hacking your brain to put all the resources into that to make sure that it survives. But ultimately, it doesn't care. Your genes don't care about you, which is, I mean, there's a very like nihilistic rabbit hole or alien hole you can go down with that train of thought. But it is scary because you can't just go to a party and you can't just go do whatever you want. You can't just go around the world and be on take a trip here. And my dad, I remember, he was very terrified of like, what if I can't go and just sail around the world and eat, pray, love whenever I want? And not that he ever did that, but it's like, it's a thing that he was scared of. He's like, I will have to be a father. I will be stuck in one place. I could be quote unquote married with children, which is its own very negative, very Western and bad, I would argue, way of viewing parenthood. But that's a thing that people view. That I would actually maybe that might be a part of the Western. The reason why the West doesn't give children what they need generally, including their education, is because when you become a parent, if you are a woman, you automatically have 70% of the man's pay because you could give birth and be a net loss of revenue to the corporation because you will not be able to work, or you will perceive to be less productive because you are growing a fetus in you, right? To become a parent has been looked in Western culture as failure, a thing to try to get out of, right? By using your spouse as to make your spouse do all of the parental work while you do whatever you want. That's why a lot of Westerners, especially Gen X and Boomers, certainly, they'll say like, well, your partner is just using you, and you're just, everyone is using each other, and you should use your children, right, as slave labor. That's normal Western practice, by the way. They only barely outlawed that after mass uprisings in the 20th century, and it's still not gone actually. And that's why everybody was working at Baskin Robbins and McDonald's at the age of 14 in the 80s up till now. But anyways, let me spiral back out of that. Being a parent is viewed as also scary from Western perspective. It's nightmarish. Everything is nightmarish, including black and brown people existing. Right? It's called savages. But being a parent is scary and bad because you might not have all of the independence and freedom you want to go to your game night every night, to go to your parties every night. You want to go to your... I like surfing and diving and skiing and going on trips whenever I feel like it. I want to go to this rock concert whenever I feel like it. I want to smoke all these drugs and do all of this injections of illegal substances. And I can't do that when I have a kid. So kids suck. I hate kids. A lot of people talk about, this is kind of coming to, a lot of modern discourse is still about that. I hate kids. I never want to have kids. I don't want to see kids. I don't want to be around kids. But that is I would argue that's a very Western, unhealed, broken imperial perspective. That is a nightmare. That is a nightmare for the American and the European and etc. Because selfish, individual, capitalistic, win-lose ways, right, are normal. And so another being that is not you, that you have to give your energy to, is viewed as a horror, a end of the world, a thing that should be stopped. Children have to be tamed, seen, not heard, and I only want to see my children whenever I want to. Right? That's why men made women, who are their first, in the Western world, the woman is the first serf, the first slave, the first exploited worker in every household. And so I take my first serf and then I make that one oppress the child, and the child is my second servant. And if I could stop that child from crying, if I hear that child crying, it decreases my personal quality of life. If that child makes me stay home and not go to my party, that decreased my quality of life. If my wife tells me I need to like watch this child when I could have been golfing or playing basketball or playing video games, playing Call of Duty, hanging out with my friends, that child is decreasing my quality of life. So children are hated, especially by men in the West, because the West is about selfish, it doesn't care about anyone, and certainly not children. And that's why the U.S. military has been shown missing and murdered indigenous women. Just a little quick side note: the U.S. military has actually contributed disproportionately to child sexual trafficking and missing and murdered Hawaiian women. It's actually disproportionate, like 3 times more likely. It's basically like it is the engine of continued child sexual exploitation, among just children exploitation as well. Every military service man or woman is a child that was brainwashed and made into a stormtrooper to kill people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, to maintain imperialism and the U.S. empire for the benefit of a handful of rich, nasty people that run the United States. And so the West does not care about children at the highest levels, at a societal level, at an international level, and at a personal level. And that's why I would argue that's actually why Alien really works in a certain sense, because children are hated in the West. Nobody will admit that in the same way that everybody says they love freedom and democracy and human rights, but nobody actually cares about them in the Western world, in the United States. Not by their actions. That's why they keep violating the entire world's, they violate their own democracy. They have a plutocracy. They violate their own freedoms, and including Elon, who's just Elon is just the ultimate American. That's all he is. He's the ultimate Westerner. He's the ultimate Roman, And everybody hates Elon, but when you hate Elon, you hate yourself, because that's who you are. You are the people that continue to allow a system that doesn't care about children to exist. Is your country. Are you a democracy or are you not? And the goal of Americans, like the goal of every father, is to offload the responsibility onto someone else. Well, I mean, the president, I just vote for him and I'm going to let it go. Right? it's not my fault. Wife, you take care of the children. Like women, and especially black and indigenous and people of color, black indigenous women of color, you create the revolution that will build a socialist, non-racist, survivable future. Not me. I'm too busy fucking off, jerking off, and doing drugs and doing whatever I want. I am not going to nurture the future, not the actual children that will be the future. That's the most revolutionary thing, is to be an actual parent to a future, actual healed, left, anti-capitalist, anti-colonial person with true history in their mind and true education in their head. Unlike what you're going to get from every Western school, public, private, charter, and university. But the men are too busy. I'm not going to go and take I'm not gonna take, and the Western men are not. I'm not gonna take time out of my life to nurture my own children to build the future that would actually make it an actual better future. And I'm certainly not gonna work on stopping that pipeline because that can take time out of my life. So the women and the non-white women are mostly who do that, and the two-spirit and non-binary people are who handle that stuff. And it's the same thing in Hawaii. It's kumuhina, and it's people that are disproportionately women, Hawaiian women, and disproportionately like people who run a firm that are helping discover these things, Reform Hawaii, and people that are non-men that are doing it. The men are too busy joining the U.S. military and killing people for a lot of money and playing golf with the senators from New York. You know? Because they don't care about raising the future. Because there's not going to be any change in this moment right now. And if they can't get this moment right now and feel good about it, and ideally a revolution with lots of shooty, bang, bang guns. And if they can't get it right now, right? It's just not really non-indigenous thinking. A lot of this is corrupted. But if I can't get my instant gratification right now, I'm not going to like cradle some screaming child and help it get to sleep. I'm not gonna, that's an alien organism in my gaming chair. That's a night terror. That's a horror. That's horror. That's horror. Horror is when, I gotta go kill it, I try to find my, where's my alien? There's an organism that isn't me taking my free time, taking my money, taking my energy, and it is taking from me. No, I'm not going to raise that. Wife, you do it. Someone else, femcoder person, somebody else, not me. You do that. You do that stuff. I'm too busy taking care of myself. And that's why there's a lot of, even in the so-called, in the Western left discourse, it's, oh, I hate kids. I don't want to see any kids. You can tell, a lot of things, you can tell a lot by when you look at what is your attitude towards the children. Oh, in the socialist communist utopia, there won't be any children. You're never going to get there because your generation is incapable. The current generation is not properly educated and radical enough to do anything, and you're too far gone. So the only communist future is a future that will come with children that are had and raised, if there ever is one. So you've already failed if that's your thinking. There's a lot of the Western thinking. If you're anti-natalist, which is its whole thing, then it's also that's actually anti-indigenous because, it's like, there's a saying that's going around by people, it's like everything is, in a bad place, but we'll fight even as things are burning. And if there are only ashes left, then we will fight for the ashes. In Hawaii, it's like to the last aloha. That was the attitude in the 1800s when the United States was illegally occupying, destroying our universal health care, the world's highest literacy rate, actual anti-racist, actual democratic country that had full equality for black people who were slaves in the United States, the so-called free country of the world, the so-called civilized countries of the world. And even as they were destroying Hawaii, it was still, well, whatever remains, we will fight for every last of that. If they poison every inch of if they poison every ounce of Hawaiian water with F-22 jet fuel and U.S. military PFAS, forever cancer chemicals, we'll fight for the last ounce of water, right? But the average, very privileged Western white so-called leftist, just wants to doom her out because they couldn't play Call of Duty all day, or they couldn't jerk off or whatever the fuck they wanted to do. But that's why children are terror for the white Western world. For the Western capitalist world, and even the so-called progressive subsections of it, is terror because it takes from you personally. But in order to, and anyway, I want to stop going off on that aside. But that's part of, I think that's part of a thing that comes into the conversation, and you can't ignore that. And that's part of what I mean by raising the future. Is the most revolutionary thing. I've said that before, but the most revolutionary thing that I can do is to actually raise children. Like Holly and I have two, and Holly does like a disproportionate total amount. So Holly is doing extremely revolutionary work, actually, very based, important work. Is to raise. I love quoting our Uncle Ho of the great indigenous socialist people of Vietnam. Uncle Ho, who actually fought an empire and won with all of his people together, multiple empires, in fact, said you can't have socialism without creating socialist human beings, which means educating and raising socialist human beings. And so raising our children, not just to be socialists in that narrow, in a narrow, Western discourse sense, but like to be children of Aloha Akula Pono, to be actually educated in world history and the reality of his economics and politics and history of the entire planet, not just Western history, which is very, very narrow and very, very limited and very, very sad and very, very broken. But all of the world, all of Asia, Latin America, all of the Americas, or Abya and all of Africa and all of the Pacific. The Pacific is the largest landmass. As a people, we cover the most landmass in the world, the most territory of the planet's surface. 1/3 of the Earth is the Pacific. And all the Pacific peoples, as Kalekoa Ka'eo, another great Kanaka Maoli educator, once pointed out, is we're all the same people. Micronesian, Melanesian, Polynesian, these sub categories were constructed by colonizers artificially to divide and conquer the great Moana, the great ocean peoples, Austronesian peoples, but that is a narrow subcategorization. All the peoples of Pacific, we shared language all the way from Madagascar, off the coast of Africa, to off the coast of the Indian Ocean, all the way to Rapa Nui or Easter Island, to Hawaii. We cover this entire planet, really, when you look very closely. Even the Chinese knew thousands of years ago there was a maritime Silk Road that was a complement to the land Silk Road. And so as Holly and I, as educators, we both have been bombarded by Western imperial win-lose unhealed propaganda. You have to fight so hard to produce children that are actually raised and educated. I would argue just educated, period. Right? I often will claim there's no such thing as education in the West. There's only conditioning, disinformation, and mass manipulation. Consent manufacturing. You have a lot of different words for it. Occasionally, when 1% of the population that has a actual thought, like Voltaire, occasionally you have a rogue educator. Like you have Noam Chomsky says a true thing one time, and then you have Voltaire says China, this 3,000-year-old ancient civilization predicated on a natural religion. What he meant was actually like just a respect for nature is what that actually means there. But is the antidote. China was the antidote to Western illusory Christian historiography. It's actually because religion comes into this film as well. And then what happened to Voltaire? He was stalked and pilloried and he was exiled. He was put in prison. Kind of like Daniel Hale or Assange. So occasionally there's a little bit of education peeks through. A white voice gets up and says, we are the greatest terrorists on this earth. And then they go to prison. But there's no actual at scale in general education. And somebody hears that and then it becomes tinfoil hat. It gets sidelined quickly by empire, by the broken cancer way of the Westerner. So to even more so in this dark, the actual jungle, the actual darkness is Europe. Unlike what the foreign representative, the foreign affairs head of the so-called European Union, the so-called great entity of Europe, he said, Europe is the garden and the rest of the world is the jungle. It's actually the opposite, if anything. Although we should not downtrodden upon our jungles. Those jungles are beautiful. But, what he means is like the rest of the world is primitive, savage, backwards, has no rules-based order. It is authoritarian. It's uncivilized. It's terra nullius, and we have to go civilize it, right? This guy is the head. He's a Spanish dude. He's not even a British or French, but Spanish. They're all in the same camp. They're all colonizers. And so that has to be constantly countered. So part of raising the future, it means raising your children with actual education. I just call it education, but it means Sometimes that means not just in the university buzzword, so I can get more kids in my college course and make some money and keep my tenure and keep paying my mortgage as a college professor. Decolonization, not just, that's the word I mean. Not just decolonization as a university buzzword to get kids in my college seats and make sure they get to Lockheed Martin soon. That's what universities are for. They're private equity hedge funds and recruitment tools for mega corporations and for buying off any radical elements that were in the population. Don't recommend going to one. You can become a Patreon for Silver Spook actual education. That's what we do on these streams and in the Silver Spook community is try to actually educate people as best as we know possible. And that's like, just before I forget, quick plug, yeah. So if you can support us on Patreon, we give this for free. The Silver Spook education that we do here, we're not going to saddle you with $200,000 of student debt and then make you sign up for a giant FANG corporation as a top tier programmer or work for Raytheon, right? Making drones for them or do marketing for Apple or be a lawyer for fucking Starbucks, right? Which is the only way you can make money to pay back your gratuitous student loans. Never go to a Western university. It's brain damage and it turns you into a stormtrooper. It's literally stormtrooperification. It's imperial cancerification of your soul. That's what university is for. So never go to one. But we give you this for free. At Patreon, we only ask that you give whatever you can to support this actual education. So consider becoming a Patreon. If you get anything from these streams, becoming a Patreon member and or supporting us through Ko-Fi so we can keep doing this education from a economically sovereign and ideologically and informationally sovereign actual place of indigenous Hawaiian anti-capitalist, anti-colonial learning. Because you're not going to get that basically. There are very few places else you're going to get that. Even in the Hawaiian community, I was very sad. I watched a university event recently and I was very saddened by people calling themselves Hawaiian professors, not necessarily Hawaiian, but professors in Hawaii. That's where you can go to get your soul destroyed. Very, very, very expert soul eradication. Very, very, very expert imperial divide and conquer. They really kind of separate. They take whatever was good about the child that was raised by your parents, and then they slowly move that and incrementally edge it towards and push it towards giving up and becoming a conservative, capitalist, realist cog in the machine that says the words like decolonization and does land acknowledgements for money, and then kisses other university administrators and professors' asses to keep showing up at the correct events. That's really interesting what universities are. They're a deep, very strong strain of the Roman imperial way. That's what I find in Western education. With a handful of rogue professors, like the ones that support us on Patreon. But anyways, enough about that. But so there is no Western school that gives children education that they need. And we're gonna get to that. I'm still on my aliens, but let me just complete that story. So children, and also we have some friends in the Silver Spook community that we would like to congratulate. I shouldn't say anybody by name, but I think some of our Mexi and some folks might be watching, and we would like to. Actually, I probably shouldn't say anybody's name because I don't know what information they want out there. But there are lots of people in the Silver Spook community that are now 30 to 50-year-old people. I don't want to put anybody's ages on blast either, but they're in that time where you're having your newts. You're having, and in this show, it's the main character is a android by the name of Mother. Her name is literally Mother, right? And they're having your young. Campion is Mother's child, right? That's that little boy there. And the father, the mother and father are both androids that have similar white liquid for blood, not unlike Ash from Alien. This guy, the blood type, the insides. Oh my God, I'm sorry, it's really gross. But that's when he comes apart and all of his guts come out, and you can see he's got this white milk. Ash, the character, is also a very fashy, very nasty, very malicious android. And he literally drinks milk. So I think there was a kind of a send up to the Nazis who drink milk because of the European genetic quirk that they're able to process the proteins and the processed milk more than other people from other parts of the world. And so Nazis would drink milk, including people like politicians from the Texas of Canada, Alberta, right, who come out on stage and drink milk like Nazis do. And there's a stand up in Clockwork Orange. But Ash is drinking milk, and I think part of what was initially happening there was because he is a eugenicist, and he says I worship and look up to the alien. Ash does, because it's a perfect organism. Its perfection is only matched by its hostility. So to be perfect in the Western sense is to be the best murderer. The might makes right is really what Ash is saying there. And it is the best because it is the best physically at killing other things. And that's why Ash has the anyway. So there is a whole element of that. And so this character in Raising the Future Mother is also, I shouldn't give too much away, but let's just say androids generally are great at killing humans and great at killing things. And so there's this tension. Well, let's just put it this way. She has weapons, right? And the androids they're just way stronger physically. They can survive longer. They can survive much more weather, like Terminators, right? Like Terminator. It can't be stopped. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with, and it absolutely will not stop until you're dead. And so the androids are kind of like that. It was part of the dual. It was one of the elements of horror in Alien. You have the xenomorph, right? You have the xenomorph creature that I have lost yet again. Yet again, I have lost it in the deep ocean, in my oceanic, frothing waves of tabs. Anyways, Alien, and then you had the android, right? Like Ash, who is not a human. One of the horrors is it's kind of like the Body Snatchers. It's like it looks and sounds and acts like a human, but it's not. It's something else. It's something malicious. And then there's a whole anti-communism element of that. Keep your neighbor looks like an American, but they could be a communist. Right? Sign up for the U.S. military and go kill them in Vietnam. I'm sorry. Now we sign up to kill the dark non-rules based order followers because the Cold War's over and we have to do Cold War 2.0. But anyways, so there's the horror was that they were gonna have this we're gonna have this thing that looks like us, but it's actually not us in our midst, and we won't know, right? John Carpenter's The Thing also deals with that, right? It looks just like us. It talks like us, sounds like us. It even smells like us. It might even say it's one of us. It's an American. It's a capitalist. It's a white person, But how do we really know? How do we really know it's a human? Because that's what it means to be human. Just ask the Supreme Court of the United States today, which is trying to make black people and women property again, and has banned abortion. So, right, like, so what is so there's multiple levels of the horror, but coming back to the Raised by Wolves. The androids are like that second element, and but the complicating factor in Raised by Wolves, which and the Raised by Wolves, the android also has white blood. That's why and Ridley Scott was asked, is this the same? Is this an overlap? Is this a sequel? Like, this is the white blood coming out of the android's body, right? When it's freaking out and getting cut and killed. And like, this is another one, right? They have that plastic tubing, fiber optic cables, weird little cords and stuff inside, and it's all white. It's all white blood inside. And so it's like, I swear to God, this is like the show Raised by Wolves. It feels like it's a show in the universe of Alien. Even the music and the kind of the Iceland volcanic scapes, it looks like Prometheus, that they land on. It feels like so much like a Ridley Scott show. It's directed. The first two episodes are directed by Ridley Scott, but it feels like a Ridley Scott Alien TV show. Yeah, and so you have pregnant android. Oh shoot, I might have been giving myself spoilers, but Raised by Wolves is a show where, and one of those androids, right, like Ash, is leaving Earth. The home. I don't want to give you the whole story, but let's just say it's on another planet. It's not Earth, like Alien, right? In Alien, they go to LV-426. It's unclear where they are, but in Raised by Wolves, as you can see, there are multiple planets behind them, visible in the sky. That's how you know it's. I'm working on Neofeud 2, which takes place on an interstellar galaxy-wide reality. So galaxy-wide world. So I gotta put multiple planets to make sure people know it's not Earth when they look up at the sky. It's one shorthand way in storytelling and in cinematic storytelling in particular to communicate we're not on Earth, right? And so the weird looking trees, although it's harder to tell, it almost looks like prehistoric looking trees. And then there's different alien creatures. There's no dogs and cats. Is like, Stargate also has that. Speaking of our sci-fi, but Stargate has this weird. You're in the desert. What is it? Let me see. Let me get. And of course, always shout out to our non-binary Afro-Asiatic, bad-mouthed by the Western world leader Ra from Stargate. Stargate. What is that animal? This is random sci-fi nerd stuff, but in Stargate, it takes place largely in the desert. It's like the Sahara somewhere, or I believe that they're filming it, right? Like Star Wars. But then, in order to communicate that it's not Earth, you have like Jim Henson animatronic creatures that bear no resemblance to any buffalo or camel or giraffe or, anything that Noah put on his ark. So, and that's how you know that's how you know you're on another planet. And if that doesn't convince you, well, look, there's two suns. Look, there's two suns. That's how we know we're on another planet, because there's two suns, or there's two planets, or there's something, something. Anyways, that's an aside. So in Raised by Wolves, though, so the android mother is again, raising the children. She is tasked with mother. Her name is just Mother, and then there's a father who is the black android. Let me see if I can get a picture of that one. Close some of these tabs out before I destroy my computer. Yep. Okay. So Mother, father is. So Mother is kind of the main character in a lot of ways, and then father is this second guy is the other parent, right? Neither of them are actually like biologically in that sense mother and father. They let me see if I can actually get a picture of that. There's some interesting shots though. There's a scene that was very Ridley Scott where there's the android mother is in the ship with like in that space colony dome, and she's got like these cables with father. Father is there helping her, and she has all of these white plastic tubes, like IV. They're like IV drip tubes coming from the like she has no like actual breast, no actual nipple, and no actual she's an android, right? So she doesn't have any of those. But on each of like on the abdominables, right? So you're on your not abdominables. What the fuck is that? The abdominable snowman. That's like a really ripped Yeti. Anyways, so the abdominable, the abdominables, on the body, supernumerary nipples, which is a condition that some people can sometimes have. People will actually have more nipples along the abdominal region, like if you look at a mother dog, right? On a mother dog. Okay, I don't want to violate TOS. Okay, on a mother dog, you might have 8 nipples attached to the mammary glands where the milk is expressed, right? And on other animals, not just dogs, if you have a litter of, like, say 6 dogs, there's one for each dog. Pigs. We also had pigs around here recently. They've moved on. the mother of the pigs. We had a wild boar pigs that came by, and they made a little family nest for some odd, unknown reason. She thought that we were safe. Speaking of safety for raising children, and the pigs there was a litter of about the pigs had 4 or 5 babies at one point. And they were like the wild boar was here actually like sleeping underneath our house basically, and then eating and rooting around and rutting around in the banyan tree roots where it's very moist and there's a lot of worms and grubs, and there's a lot of weird mushrooms and other fungus that the pigs like to eat, like pigs like truffles. There's weird like ear-shaped mushrooms and a kind of there's a black fungus, there's the pink fungus, and it was very fertile, and for them anyway. If I can find a wild boar. And so the babies were with that mother sleeping under our they kind of look like this. Some had striped backs, some of them were less striped backs, but they would often come underneath our house and they would be nursing there, and so the supernumerary nipples is a thing that's in many animal and particularly mammalian, obviously mammary glands, mammalian animal species, and where was I going with that? And so there's many things I can say about that, but and one of it was the mother was it was weird because I remember this one point the pig came up and it was walking right up along the side of our house, and all of the little babies were trotting up, and I was like, what are you guys doing? Don't come so close, humans are dangerous, especially these colonizer Western humans. I mean, I'm not even joking about that. The one of the pigs actually died because something that one of the other white humans did here recently, and they did not take care of the body either. So I'm not gonna spill any more tea than that. They just, but humans are dangerous for you. You might know piggy, you might become someone else's food. I mean, even Hawaiians would eat pigs. Kalua pork, and when you go have your lalo at your Hawaiian luau, please don't, because we would not benefit from cultural prostitution in Hawaii of our culture at those Hawaii resorts. But if you have at a Hawaiian luau, you would have a pork filled, leaves, spinach like kalo leaves. That kalo that I was showing you earlier. So that kalo leaf would wrap around the pork, and that will be what you would have as a staple food at one of our events, right? When we would feed our own people. And so, the pig, I was like, look at the pig. I was like, pig, why are you coming so close? Like, and the mother pig actually looked at me like, don't come so close because you might get eaten by another human. You might get shot by one of these freaking colonizers, and then left to die. You might, also like, you don't want to be here because you're kind of getting too close to our patch and you're kind of making a mess. And so, we don't really want you to be right here. And the mother pig like looked at me like, the baby pigs are all around, and the mother pig like turned her head and she kind of looked up, and I was like, and then came closer, and I was like, what? Do you think I'm safe? And I was like, maybe this pig was raised by wolves. No, I didn't have that thought, but maybe this pig was raised by humans, right? Maybe this pig was raised by humans, and the humans treated that pig well, but not because the humans like were the pig. Well, I mean, it's not that Hawaiians don't like generally like mistreat the pigs that they are raising, but they were treated they were fed every day, right? Like there's a book, The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, or about the butcher feeds the turkey every day, and so you think that that the butcher is your best friend, and then you have this chronologically often repeated, and that's a metaphor for stock markets and explosions of global financial collapses. You think that with the way that Wall Street takes advantage of the rest of the entire planet, everyone else is the turkey. You're being fed every day a little bit, and so the pig, maybe the pig was being fed every day a little bit, but then one day the human's gonna come and you're gonna be slaughtered, and that's the end of you. And it was kind of like maybe this pig thought I'm one of the humans that the pig, it was inside of a pen and it escaped, and it came back. And that's one theory. We don't know. It was a pig that was being raised and it was being fed by humans. So maybe the mother pig saw me and said, "Oh, you're safe because I love humans, like my last human. You're tall, you have a two-legged, you're about 5'10" or whatever. Maybe I look like the previous human owner, You look safe to me, you know. Speaking about like when do creatures and organisms, whether they are hollow plants, sweet potatoes, dogs, pigs, or humans, when do they or pecan trees, when do they feel safe, and where do they feel like this is a place that I can give birth, and is this a place that I can bring my children? Is this a person that's safe? The answer is, if you take your children to any Western school, then that's not a safe place for them, because they're going to get diseducated and they're going to believe false things like the United States is the greatest country in the world. Freedom and democracy comes from the United States. These are all things that it's illegal to teach these things at almost every school in the United States. They had to formally ban it, CRT 1619 project. So no public, private, or charter school in the United States is a safe place for your children. You see what I'm saying? Those people are there to make your children, they're there to harm your children. The school, not because the teacher specifically is going to do something physically abusive, although bullying and school shooting is a very dangerous place, just because things like what happened at Uvalde, which the United States police enabled. Nobody is there to protect your children from a mass shooting in any Western school, certainly in the United States. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The school is not there to educate your children. The school is there to turn your children, especially for Native Hawaiians, but not just for Native Hawaiians, for every child, as I said. It's not just the millions of Hawaiians and indigenous people who were put into boarding schools and into just general public schools to kill the Indian to save the man, and were literally died, like in Canadian residential schools, were killed by the priests that ran those schools. But every child that goes into an American school comes out an American, which is a racist, capitalist, brainwashed person who is incapable of change, which is why you don't have any, right? Ho Chi Minh, to have socialist human beings, you need to have socialism, you need to have race socialist human beings. To have actual revolutionary, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, to heal this planet, to have the end of empire, you have to have fully, completely anti-imperial raised, and in life ways, not just in intellectual knowledge, human beings. School is not for that. School is where you send your children to die. It's not a safe place for your children. Every Western school. The pig thought that we were a safe place in the same way that the pig thought that these humans are safe, in the same way that you think the university is safe for you, and you're going to go there and you're going to get a great education, and you're not going to be 50 years old doing high frequency trading, algorithm programming for Goldman Sachs, making economies scream in Africa. You think it's a safe place for you as a change-making a young person, and then hearing all these great speeches and looking at all these great things you could do, you think you're going to go and you're going to change that corporation from the inside. You're going to go into U.S. military and you're going to fight for a great cause. When you go to your school, you're going to go there and you're just going to learn math and reading, and you're not going to be taught mountains of conditioning and brainwashing and history, politics, and social studies, and et cetera, et cetera. The school, like that pig, like the turkey, is being lulled into a false sense of security and a false sense of, this is a place where I can raise my children. And then 20 years later, you have another generation of stormtroopers. That's what we have right now. And we'll keep having that until we find a dual power structure and fully non-capitalist, non-empire affiliated, non-US Western corporation, Western government, Western NGO funded purse strings that fund universities, that fund corporations, that fund NGOs, that fund nonprofits, where all the grants come from. Purse strings are puppet strings. Remember that. And that's why it has to be independent. That's why you can only get news from Danny Haifong, Black Agenda Report, and Black Power Media. If it's not coming from fully divorced and authentically non-capitalist, imperial funded entities, there is not even a possibility of there being education there, I would argue. Not even a possibility of actual education. You can get some true facts and some correct information, but the ultimate final narrative that will be engendered in your children's mind is not something that will make any changes. Doesn't matter how many decolonization words they put on their posters. Doesn't matter how many anti-imperialism
conferences they claim they're going to have. It doesn't matter how many these things, if they were going to do anything, if anything that's radical enough will be Fred Hampton and Malcolm X out of existence from a university, from a Western school system. If you want 300, you need 330 million actual revolutionary human beings, and that's not going to come out of Western school. Then the Star-Spangled Roman Empire is too advanced at maintaining its structures to maintaining through a pretense of pretenses of potential change-making avenues, false democracy, false choices is too advanced to for people to let anyone get away with going through Western child rearing through the school system and not come out another wolf is another way to put it. You know, another stormtrooper, another mass crucifier like the police are, you know? So, and, you know, I think that, so, and I think, you know, that's actually a good metaphor that, you know, I was just thinking about that because, you know, why did, I still don't know why that pig came up to us, you know, still don't know why did that pig come up? Is it, maybe it was because it knew us. Maybe the pig, when it was young, it came by this place and it ate under that specific tree and now it's coming back, you know, and it wasn't shot and it didn't get killed that other time. But, so, I mean, for the people who are, this is kind of part of it. I'm saying this is for people who are parents, future parents, people who take care of children, people who are trying to help children, you know, people are trying to educate other people, even not necessarily even children, you know, but certainly if you're trying to raise children, you know, people were asking me this week, you know, Silver Spook, what do I need to know? Silver Spook, I am a native, so as Hawaiians and other people, not just Hawaiians. I'm a native Hawaiian, and I'm like, even like, you know, I listen to you, and I'm trying to like teach my kids anti-imperial, anti-decolonial education. I don't want to just send them to school, you know, but I don't know if I have time because it takes so much time, and it does take a lot of time to come up with your own curriculum. So also, please support us for that. So I was actually working on a Silver Spook University. I mean, just a quick little aside. I was like, because I'm like, well, I'm saying all this, but I want to like try to put more of my money where my mouth is, right? And so put more of my time. I don't have any money. Holly and I don't have no money, but we have put our time where our mouth is and energy where our mouth is, some more of it. So I was thinking about doing an entire I was considering doing a Silver Spook University that would formally organize all the content, as indigenous left education that combines decolonized history, current struggles, imagined futures, and cultural analysis from a Native Hawaiian activist, educator, and professional game developer. I mean, obviously, that's who I am, so that's what you're gonna get. But also professional, non-capitalist, independent business, an indigenous, anti-capitalist, anti-imperial business that operates. Like we don't take any funding from anywhere else. We only get it from Patreon, and we have the sales of the games, which are entertainment but also educational games. I don't call them educational games, but you learn something from Neofeud, Decolonators, Indigenous Star, Neofeud 2, etc. And so if you are interested in that as another side, let me know, because this might eventually become a Patreon benefit or something that we might do. We might put out there. What do you need to know today? I mean, that's a question somebody asked me. What do I teach my kids? What do I teach? I'm 35, I'm 40. I have a 1-year-old. I'm getting ready for school. I have a 5-year-old. What do I teach them? What do I teach them? What do they need to know? Because I know that they're not learning what they need to know from school. Even just in terms of like how to survive the AI automated, hyper algorithmatized workforce where writing, music, and programming and art is all being done by AI now. Like OpenAI, Chat GPT obsolescing all of New York Times reporters. All the grant writers could be obsolete, you know, very soon. Entire office floors are being replaced by AI, right? Not just Elon firing all of the Twitter staff, which is its own thing, but tech are also firing everyone. Artists and writers and game writing, game art is just being completely disrupted right now. What do you need to teach your children? The school is not going to teach you that. Even universities don't teach you how to do. The number one college course in universities now is esports, how to play video games. You're spending $100,000 a year, possibly, for your kids to like learn how to play video games good by a 50-year-old person who is trying to hang on to their mortgage by teaching a college class called Video Games 112 about how to play video games and do esports good. University, this is a joke. This is a joke. This is a education-free empire full of universities and colleges that don't teach anything to maintain $2 trillion worth of subprime student loans so they can keep making money from Wall Street. You're never gonna learn anything in a university. So, where do you learn it from? And so, I mean, actually, there's a lot more independent. We talk about dual power structures. We should have dual educational structures, right? Now, just to give you a free example. Red Nation has Red Nation is an indigenous actual left organization, and they have let me see where's the rest of the red. God damn it. The writers of the Red Deal, which is an indigenous organization. I think it's Red Nation that wrote it. Another one is Nu Amalta. Amalta Nu is a Quechua Amara native decolonizing Anglo and Latin America who also is teaching classes, and you can directly pay the indigenous people that are going to actually educate you. Don't go through this system that's taking all that money and collateralizing it and turning it into credit default swaps and blowing up the entire global economic system to enrich a handful of oligarchs by taking out a huge amount of money for a giant mega bank and throwing that into a bunch of mostly white men administrators at some NYU. Or I apologize to Big Teal, because I know Big Teal is like probably personally triggered by when I bring up the white men that run the university system and order you around. But you can take Big Teal's classes. That's the only class you can take. Big Teal and people that are on this Patreon. Everyone else, I don't know. But where's Nu Amalta has entire set of classes. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to find it. But I think you can't sign up for it, 'cause I think it just closed. But let me see. Red Nation. I just had it and I lost my link. I'm sure Holly can help me with that, finding it. But the Red Nation has their indigenous left organization that actually has their own classes and courses. Lots of things. If you need to learn how to do math and reading, you can do that like Khan Academy. There's so many online learning tools. I mean, that's one of the good things about AI is that you can have tailored classes that can teach the basics, math and science and reading and writing and the stuff that, long division and how to do fractions and how to make a grammatically correct English sentence. I mean, that kind of stuff is, a lot of it is daycare. Both of my parents are teachers. Both my parents are teachers, and my dad even says my dad is, he has a master's degree from a fancy Western university. He taught high school, and he said schools are just schools are glorified daycares. It's just somewhere to put the children so that mommy and daddy can go and give 8 hours of their labor value time straight to some giant capitalist. That's what school's for. Most of the stuff we do here is just school is a place of detention because it's not a place of attention. Everyone is half bored out of their mind. It's a place for people to practice being cogs in the machine, sitting down, taking orders from the master at the front of the room and not being a democracy. Schools are not a democracy. Schools don't teach you how to be in community, in a mutual aid network. Schools are not a mutual aid network. Schools are top down. I order you what to do in the capitalist widget producing factory or in the military that you're going to go into or into the academy that's full of top down footnote Neofeudalism, where you have to kiss the ass of the richest, whitest, most imperial college professor that probably came out of fucking Harvard. School is a place that pumps out capitalist, imperialist, racist people, even though they don't even realize it. They say words like decolonization, but they don't even know what that means. They say things like, I want to take down corporate greed, but they don't even know how to do that. School is not a place of education. School is a place of detention. You can learn most of the things you need to know outside of it. And that's why what we do what we need to do. So that's what I would recommend. Now, because capitalism exists and because there are no good alternatives, because the empire is constantly stomping down any organization like the Black Panthers, etc., it tries to assassinate anybody actually working on something at a scale that's actually mass educating people and feeding children, etc., which is why they got rid of the Black Panthers. But still, there are people around that are doing this all over the place, and if you have the capacity to do this at home, then I would recommend you do that, because you're not going to get it from school. Ask yourself, why do you need somewhere to put your children so that you and your partner can spend all day either being one of the partners being a selfish prick playing video games all day, usually the dude, and another partner actually doing all the work at a job, doing marketing for Coca-Cola in an office somewhere to make the money to pay the mortgage or the rent or whatever bills. Or maybe you both work. Ask yourself, why do you need somewhere to put your child? It's because school is where capitalism is enforced. School is where the Indian and the indigenous is killed. Every school. When you're born, whether your parents were two white people, a white person and an indigenous person, two black people, a black and Asian person, it doesn't matter your skin color. Children are not born with as white people. It is installed into them in school. And that's why you can't make white children uncomfortable. It's illegal to do that in Missouri, in Florida, in Georgia, in almost every state of the United States. They ban critical race theory. The word Marxism is actually banned in all of Britain. In fact, you can't. Anti-capitalist education is a criminal offense in Britain. People don't know that. Protesting is criminal in most of the West at this point. They're passing all kinds of laws. But even worse than protesting is educating children that is actually true is the most damaging thing the empire could ever have. Because that if the U.S. military and the Project for New American Century people have actually admitted internally, we have to stop teachers and professors. And this is why it's not going to be a place where you can do this anymore. We have to stop these teachers and professors from moving children away, and certainly at the K-12 level, questioning the American narratives, which is American lies. Right? We have to stop this teaching, this woke, right? That's why they're all scared of woke. Woke just means true education. That's all that means. We have to stop people from getting true education, because then we won't be able to maintain our empire, which is based on lies. And the people who don't believe America is a great country are not going to sign up for its military, and they're not going to work at its large corporations. And we need them to keep doing that. So literally, the Pentagon has identified education as a number one threat to U.S. dominance and world economic hegemony. So it's actually the most radical thing that you could do. And so I recommend you find somewhere to get, if you do have anybody who needs education, find somewhere to get that's not from any U.S. capitalist affiliated, or U.S. not just capitalist, Western government affiliate. Any client of the United States is under the purview of the United States empire. So, circling back into the show, though, what does it mean to be raised by wolves? What does that mean to be raised by wolves? Like, I mean, there's a lot of ways to think about that, right? But one of them is that to be raised by very dangerous, not parental entity, right? If a wolf, like the boy who cried wolf. I mean, certainly in Western lore, in Western world, the wolf is dangerous. The wolf is there in the woods, right? Like there's a story, right? That the android tells a story to the children at one point in Raised by Wolves. The android has a story of the three little pigs, and the mother android, right, is telling the story of the three little pigs. And she says, one of the pigs built the house out of straw. And this little piggy did not work very hard. And the other second piggy, built his house out of twigs. And he worked a bit harder. But that house was also not that strong. And the last piggy worked so hard and built his house out of brick. And then one day, the big bad wolf came along. Right? Now the show's called Raised by Wolves. Right? One day, the big bad wolf came along, and that wolf said, little pig, let me in. And you know that story. Or I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in and eat you. And the wolf huffed and puffed, and it blew away all of the houses except for the last piggy. So the mommy is telling this story to the kids, but it's like, but the kids are being raised by a wolf. So part of this is like, I mean, there's another element to that, which is like, I often bring up, I'll always be half stormtrooper, I'm always going to be half wolf. because I went to American school. I went to a $20,000 a year private educational stormtrooper training facility and Star Destroyer pilot facility. I went to actually I argue the Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, and all of their Ivy League feeder schools, right? Like their Exeters, and their fancy little, multi 10,000 per year private schools. Those are schools, right, that train the future Emperor Palpatines. They are wolf. They are wolf incubators. If a wolf is a thing that is in the woods that will kill you, it's dangerous. We have to watch out for it. It is our enemy. It is there to eat us if we're not careful, right? All schools are wolves. Every Western school is a wolf incubation facility that makes future very dangerous entities. They're called Americans. They're called Westerners. They're called capitalists. They're called imperialists. They're called people who believe falsely in their own freedom, democracy, equality that they don't have. Right? Very dangerous people. The most dangerous are the moderate white liberals amongst them. Right? The ones that seem to not. The wolf's best at hiding in sheep's clothing, like Obama. He was recently trending on Twitter with his little speech, right? About, I don't know why there's all these kids with their woke. You try running in this country. I did my absolute best as the black man that rebranded the empire. Obama was the sheep's clothing that the U.S. empire put on as a moderate white inside. The moderate white liberal with dark pigmentation. Obama came out and had a dream again and re-gooded the number one evil that is killing and destroying this entire planet, including 800 military bases. I don't need to recap that for most of this crowd, I don't think. But Obama is from Hawaii also, so I know it intimately. I went to Obama's school technically. I know exactly what they teach there. I know who goes there. The CEO of eBay's children go there. The Navy admirals who make wars from Afghanistan, Iraq, and drop PFAS in our water. Navy admirals' children go to this school. I went to his school. I went to the school across from his school, and I went to his school technically. Obamas are pumped out. Hawaii is Cornel West yesterday called Hawaii ground zero of the U.S. empire. So I just want to add that too. I say this all the time. Hawaii is the Death Star. It's the most ultra-American place. It's the most ultra-imperial place. It is the headquarters of the descendant of the Roman Empire. Really. And not just because of those facts there's many other reasons. But Hawaii, but Hawaiian schools schools in Hawaii are the ultimate wolf creators. Is one of the most diseducated. Cornel West also said Hawaii is one of the most warped, the most deepest hypocrisies are embedded in its place. He brought up 1897, or Hawaiians had not. I made this point often, right? 95% of Hawaiians said we absolutely do not want the United States. We don't want to be in the United States as part of the United States, and the United States violated democracy. So it's Cornel West brought up, as an intellectual who is Cornel West is a black intellectual surrounded by wolves in the Ivy League, and he came to Hawaii. Let's see if I get a picture. And he knows. Cornel West also said academia is a place where everyone goes to die. He even said that himself. It's professionalism, careerism, and finding his brand, and and he said he knows this. Everybody knows this. I know everybody who follows my streams knows this. But he was I'm sure I can find a picture of him. He was in Hawaii giving a speech. Yeah, with shit, missing it. Okay. Yeah, this is the one though. Yeah. So it's not January 20th. Anyways, you know who Cornel West is. But I don't need to give his curriculum vitae. It's one thing I hate about universities. You go to a university conference, you have to listen to 50 minutes of professor after professor thanking each other and thanking all the other professors around them, and what every institution they've ever been at. And then you get 30 minutes. You get 2/3 is everybody just kissing each other's ass, and you get 20 minutes of actual content. I'm like, what the fuck was I? So I'm like, You know, I mean, but you know, but that is the Versailles court of Western academia. It's all disconnected from the working class, people who know too many big words, thanking each other so they can all get a bunch of money gifted to them by the empire. That's what academia is for, and that's why I can't stand watching some of these. Even the ones in Hawaii. I like all these Hawaiian. Some of the Hawaiian. I appreciate some of the work that some of the Hawaiian professors have done, but I'm like, y'all just gonna kiss all each other's asses for the next 2 hours or what? And I mean, not to speak of the rest of the so-called United States, but my point was that like that Ray's, you know, Cornell, you know, he was saying like it is one of the places of the greatest diseducation. Where did all the diseducation come from? Where did all of that diseducation come from? I recommend if anybody has some extra time. There's a Kalakaua Ka'eo. Kalakaua Ka'eo is a radical rogue educator who works for the University of Maui, if I'm not mistaken. He's a professor of Hawaiian language. He was the one. Kalakaua Ka'eo was arrested for speaking Hawaiian in Hawaii. Right? You have to ask yourself this: what kind of free democratic country that protects human rights arrests Hawaiians for speaking Hawaiian in Hawaii? You ask yourself that, and if you can't answer that, that's because you don't have an education. You are a stormtrooper. That's why you can't answer that. You were brainwashed. You know, and it's because Kalakaua Ka'eo, he was a professor. I'm trying to find the video that he did recently. It was a long one. Maybe it was on Facebook. Iteration long. I think it was in 2021. 2012, 2020, 2020, 2021. Okay, yeah. Critical issues of the Pacific's peoples, 10/29/21. And I'm not gonna play this just because it might get copyright infringement. Critical issues of peoples of the Pacific. But you know, he brings up in this presentation, his part starts. I was watching this, it was interesting. His portion of the presentation starts. So you have all these professors, right, talking about, you know, the various things they're doing, right? And not to say that the work is necessarily bad. There's lots of, you know, there's history that has to be done. But you know, they're giving histories of the United States, histories of settler colonialism, histories of the occupation of what happened in the U.S. came to Hawaii, occupied Hawaii, and but you know, some of it is actually very American centered. You know, they skip the most important parts, which is the mid in this presentation. They skip 1800s Hawaii that was sovereign, independent, democratic, more democratic. All the stuff I'm always talking about, right? All those most important things about Hawaii. Hawaii was the most advanced, actual democratic, actual socialist, actual anti-imperialist country in the world. It was the leading country in the world, but nobody would acknowledge it because there's a world that was run by capitalist, barbarian, colonizer European powers, France, Britain, etc. Right? And that's the story that the academics are telling is not radical nearly enough. Because why? Because they're trying to keep their jobs in academia. And then there's Kalakaua Ka'eo is like, we have to interrogate, you know, because he's the guy who's always getting arrested. He's been arrested like 50 times already. He was arrested for speaking Hawaiian in a court in Hawaii. He was arrested on Mauna Kea for an illegal occupational mass project, the TMT. He was arrested on the U.S. military base. He's been arrested all over the place. In a country that continues to punish children for speaking Hawaiian in 2022. Why do you ask this? Why does every school in the United States not teach that Hawaiians had the greatest actual equality, democracy, racial, economic, etc.? Every school in the United States, if it really cared about democracy, equality, right, technological advancement, literacy, and human rights, every school, every public school, every private school, every charter school, and every NGO funded, every nonprofit would teach the history of Hawaii, the true history of Hawaii, if the United States, if Europe, if every French and British and Spanish and German school really cared about human rights and democracy and freedom. You cannot even begin to talk about that if you don't talk about the sovereign country of Hawaii that led this world. by the numbers. Universal healthcare, first in the world, century outdating every Western country. Highest literacy rate in the world, hands down, beating every European country. Highest, virtually no housing, system of worker-owned cooperatives, Black and Asian and all people, all ethnicities, all races accepted equally in an advanced country, accepted in the international family of nations. The fact that no European, no American, no Western country teaches the history of Hawaii tells you everything you need to know about those countries. They do not care at all about freedom and democracy and human rights. They only care about being wolves in sheep's clothing by calling them, the US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, all the EU, calling themselves sheep, calling themselves the great, safe, very friendly countries, while denying the actual truth, while continuing to eat Hawaii with military bases, with the worst economic inequality in the so-called United States, with the highest per capita mass arrest of children. The fact that the rest of the Western world continues to eat Hawaii like a wolf while putting on the sheep's clothing and making future wolves by teaching all their children's false history of the world, that Europe and the United States and the Western countries are leaders in freedom and democracy and human rights against the dark, authoritarian Eastern and African global South countries. By the fact that Europe does not, let me say that one more time, the fact that every European country and every Western country and the US do not teach the actual history of actual successful democracy, successful racial equality, and successful human rights, not just talking about it. No European countries have ever given full equality to African people and Muslim people. Hawaii did. No, the United States has never given racial equality. Ask the 31 million people in Black Lives Matter. Canada, ask the indigenous people and African people in Canada. No Western country has ever given racial equality and true democracy to the people and true to all people universal health care. Europe doesn't give universal health care because Black people are disproportionately dying in your hospitals. If the West truly cared about the things they say they care about, they would teach the history of Hawaii. None of them do. None of them do. They just keep on killing us and vacationing here on our backs, killing us more with poverty, dancing their fake plastic hula. And so just on that alone, not just Hawaii, you should teach all of Asia's history. You should teach all of Vietnam's history. You should teach all of Cuba's history. None of them do. None of them do, and they never will. And that's why you got to do it yourself, because every Western, the whole entire country, not just individual citizens, not just this government, not the Republican or Democrat, not whatever parties in this, what the so-called democracies they claim to have. There's no capitalist country has a democracy. Capitalism preempts the possibility of there being a democracy. Racism preempts the possibility of there being a true democracy or justice, by the way. So Hawaii was one of the only countries in the world recognized as a country in the international community that actually had those things that the West aspires to. And you should demand you should demand. I recommend you don't demand, because the United States is a plutocracy and it's racist, and so is Europe. None of your European and your US countries and most of the people in your countries are ever gonna teach this stuff, right? So you're gonna have to figure out how to do that yourself for your own children, because and get into cooperatives of people outside of the European government, outside of the European capitalist structures, outside of the Western United States school system, and obviously it's private and public schools, because nobody is gonna teach this stuff. Nobody ever will in the Western world. And if you the more that you think that you are gonna have your children raised by anything but wolves, is part of the problem. And that's the goal. That's my goal, is to make sure people understand that, do not. As I said, I was going to be a high frequency trading algorithm programmer or some kind of Obama-like figure. I could have easily run for some kind of presidential or gubernatorial, some kind of race, because I can speak like a white person, but I don't look like them. And I'm from one of the greatest Imperial Palpatine training facilities. I went to one of them. Right? I know how they think. I know who they are. It's nightmarish. And I try to convince you, you do not fall for that scam. Don't be the turkey, don't be the pig Don't be the mommy pig bringing your children into what you think is a safe space called any school, any university. And then 25 years later, 30 years later, you're gonna watch, if there is a world left to fight for and not just ashes, you'll watch your children be stormtroopers. So don't be the mommy pig bringing your children to the wolves. You can take your children to be raised by Big Teal. I don't know if Big Teal is child rearing right now, but Big Teal. you can get education from Big Teal, and that's valid. But and there's a few, but that's it. That's it though. I recommend you just like give all your money straight to Big Teal. Anyways, sorry I keep putting you on a spot, but I keep seeing your name there. But Big Teal is helping do lots of education, being a moderator in so many streams, including Black Agenda Report, Danny Haifong, and all. If I see like an actual Death Star satellite being recalibrated for distributing information rather than diseducation, right? And Death Star satellite, I mean YouTube, I mean all the Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, all the FANG big techs. It's Big Teal is usually in that stream where there's actual education happening. So you can, but then outside of that, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's all wolves. Outside of that, it's all wolves. But anyways, so back to my metaphors though before I went off on my tangent. I do recommend you check out that video. Listen to this part from Kale Koka'eo, because Kale Koka'eo is like hardcore rogue educator. He's like, he works at a university, but he's actually like doing more actual practice outside of university. It's very important. If your only thing you're doing is doing things in the university, you're not doing anything, right? So that's very important, because he's constantly engaging in so many other spaces and trying to push all of these people to anyways, back to the science fictional cyberpunk nerd shit. So in Raised by Wolves, these characters, she's telling the story of the wolves, right? The wolf and the three little pigs, while at the same time, she as an android, right? She is a weapon. She was actually a weapon. She killed so many people, actually, and entities like her were designed for war. She's a literally, I mean, not even joking. She's a stormtrooper, like a very high caliber one. She's like a Darth Vader level one, just like wiping out entire. She's like a centurion, like a super powered Marvel centurion. You know what I'm saying? And I'm purposely fusing Rome and the U.S. Empire and its superheroes together, just like flying around using laser eye cannons to vaporize people. Vocal, like her scream turns people into splatters of blood. And now she's a mother. Her name is Mother, right? And so it's this allegory, which is how do you if you are, and when I'm going off about being half stormtrooper, how do you raise a new generation if you are half stormtrooper? Like I said, I have all of this garbage stuff inside me, and I have to constantly try to fight against it inside, right? But such is what it means to be an indigenous person. Such is what it means to be a native Hawaiian. Such is what it means to be a person who has been under colonization. Is indigenous people are not these museum pieces, right? Like Jacqueline Keeler and these kind of people like to who are operatives for the U.S. Empire like to say. Indigenous people are people who are surviving and fighting. I mean, that's one thing Coronel West correctly points out. Like black people, like we are people who have suffered all of the spitting upon and violence and beatings and eradication and mental, physical, spiritual crushing, right? And indigenous people like trying to wipe out and eradicate, kill the Indian, just slaughter them all with Custer and with all of the U.S. military, kill the buffalo, starve them, steal their children, kill them, culturally eradicate them, punish them, beat their children's hands for speaking Hawaiian in class. Like my mother was beaten in class till her hands broke for speaking Hawaiian. And so indigenous people, like, it means to be people that have been heavily traumatized, right? but still get up the next day, like people of color generally, and the black people across the world, and people like the Vietnamese in Vietnam who have struggled against multiple empires, genocidal attempts, and then get up the next day, and then you fight back, and you take all of that and turn it into something that is positive, ultimately positive. Sometimes requires defense, but and so that like, you know, that struggle, though, part of that can turn you into a wolf, right? Part of the process of U.S. conditioning through the school system, not just the boarding school system, the whole school system. As I said before, every human that is born is an indigenous person, or is a person that is possibly going to be a healed human being. And school is where it doesn't just kill Indians, the indigenous people, to save the man. It doesn't kill the Indian to put a racist white capitalist man in it. It also takes children of white parents and turns them into future white people. You know, is that it is much more complex. That's another way to look at it. Every other 330 million people have gone through a racist capitalist American making facility in all aspects of existence through that schooling system, right? And it has worked, sadly, on some native peoples. You know, some of our Hawaiian population are Americanized. I can feel it in myself. I can feel it in my thought patterns. I can feel the whiteness coming through at different times, and I have to actively, constantly fight against it. So how do I not replicate things that, even in myself trying to raise our children as Native Hawaiians, right? As you know, the kind of children that we need, that are going to be capable of fighting against empire and capitalism, racism, and all these systems, that have the moral fortitude and the courage and the true history and education and the life ways and the practices, you know, physical, spiritual, you know, in their work, in the way that they, you know, in the way that everything, in every aspect of life, in the way that they have romantic relationships, in the way that they have online relationships and offline relationships, right? How they interact with everything. All of those things are political. All those things matter, right? And how do I do that, specifically as a Native Hawaiian that was raised and put into a wolf school, not raise future wolves? And which parts of me have to not continue on into the next generation? You know, it's like a very hard questions to ask, but you know, they have to be asked, right? Because some people might say, Silver Spook, well, you're saying all this sounds good, but if I am an American that was raised as a white American and I have 2 kids or 3 kids or 1 child, how do I even know what I need to teach them? You know, and I'll tell you, like, the short answer is, like, I don't even know everything I need to teach my own kids. But what I do know is that I try my best to give what based on all of the education I've gotten from other indigenous people around the world, from Native Hawaiians, from Lost Sioux, our indigenous Sioux relatives, Anishinaabe relatives, all of my indigenous game devs, all of my Vietnamese comrades like Luna Oi that I constantly am working with, our black comrades inside of the diaspora, outside in the UK like Saber, all the ones in, some of them in Africa, the people that are Cubans, the people that are in South Central America, indigenous South American people like Nuamauta. I mean, and from all these other people that have all helped me in various ways to be less of a Star Destroyer pilot, Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm programmer, or AI programmer for the facial recognition systems on Tomahawk and Hellfire missiles. That's what I wanted. Or be a AI cognitive scientist using mass arresting black and brown people and deporting children empowered by AI, artificial intelligence that I was programming. I would have been doing one of those 3 things if I hadn't gotten out of the academy, the university, the Western education system. I would have become one of those 3 things probably. An AI imperial, an AI stormtrooper, a, you know, Wall Street programmer stormtrooper, or a military stormtrooper, because that's the jobs that pay the bills with tech and coding education. So, or skills. I wouldn't call it really education. It's more like skills and know-how. So What do you need to teach your children, though? That's a very hard question. What do you need to teach your children? I can tell you what to the best of my knowledge, what I know, and I try to, like, at least at minimum, don't bullshit and don't put sheep's clothing on wolf stuff. I just be like, that's wolf stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then if I find out that, oh, this thing I thought that's incorrect, and I'm finding these things all the time, then I will tell you, well, that thing I thought, that's not the thing that we need to know. And because at the same time, there's so much knowledge in our relatives in indigenous socialist civilizations like China and Vietnam and these other places. There's so much knowledge that they could hand over, but people are not ready to hear it. It's not delivered in a language and in a grammar and in a way that Westerners are able to receive it. And so that's where people that are in between, people that are half stormtrooper, that are of East and of West in some different aspects. There's actually East-West Center at the University of Hawaii, right? And have to be go-betweens between the education-free Western world and then the educated East and South. There have to be go-betweens, I think, and that's part of, like, if there is a kuleana, which is a Hawaiian word that means responsibility, that I have, it is to be the half wolf that can bring non-wolf education into the actual fallen jungle, right? In the Borel EU sense, which is the jungle is the West, the violent, dangerous, dog eat dog, even call it that. It's like, right? In the barbarian world, the jungle needs people that are like half of the jungle to bring the actual garden of Asia and Africa and the indigenous parts of the Pacific and Turtle Island in, because they don't listen to the Chinese. They don't listen to the Vietnamese. They kind of almost maybe listen to Luna, but usually not. They just disregard her because she's a woman and because she's Asian and she has an accent. That means she's not very smart, right? Like, literally, I watch it happen all the time. So there needs to be other people that can, like, bring that in. And so anyway, that's what we try to do. But so part of this is I'm talking about Silver Spook Cooperative and things we're trying to do. But also I want this is directly relevant to, like, the topics that are brought up in Raised by Wolves, which is what does it mean to be a parent? Like, how do you be a parent? Like, what drives people? How and that's part of the intro, right? In Raised by Wolves, it has 2 seasons, by the way. I think there might be a 3rd season. Androids are tasked with raising human children on a mysterious planet after Earth is. So the important thing, because actually this kind of comes to the wider multi-century science fictional space projection. Earth is torn apart, right? Androids are tasked with raising human children on a mysterious planet after Earth is torn apart by religious indifferences and the human race teeters on the edge of extinction. An atheistic android architect sends 2 creators, mother and father, to start a peaceful, godless colony on the planet Kepler 22b. So, I would actually part of this. I mean, Ridley Scott has personally said, religion is horrible. It's horrid stuff. We just got to get rid of all this religion. Ridley Scott. And it was just like, it's fine. I'm not super religious myself, but religion is a vector of colonization, I would argue. This Western Christian in particular, but Western monocultural empires have monotheistic and mono-religious realities, right? Our Christianity, right? That's doctrine of discovery, right? That's prosperity doctrine, and certainly the ideology that said that's manifest destiny. Well, our destiny is to replace whatever was there with our Christian civilized ways. To be civilized was synonymous with being Christian, right? The Spanish, the French, the British all had this, and so when it's hard, I mean, it really he's a British. He is an Anglo-Saxon, right? So internally, he has a very Dawkins, Sam Harris, circa 2008 vibe to it. It's got a very Da Vinci Code. I'm angry at mommy and daddy because we were religious, but there's more than that. But I feel like something I listened to Ridley Scott talk, and he has he had some bad time with his Anglican priests or something, which is like, and also I can see how like you're gonna make it about religion rather than other things, because then that's a thing that's easier to do for liberal science fiction consumers, because let's be real, that's who consumes this kind of stuff generally. After Earth is torn apart by religious differences, the human race teeters on the edge of extinction. So the androids are designed because from their perspective, the religion, and it gives it like an arbitrary hypothetical split, schism, a divide that the human race destroys its entire planet, fighting atheists against the religious, right? It's mostly like Christians trying to kill everyone else, like the U.S. going to Iraq and Afghanistan and killing them, and the U.S. and neocon Christians making radical Islamist jihadists in Al-Qaeda, funding and having CIA operatives like Osama bin Laden do their bidding to make problems for Russia and China. I mean, unless the atheists are Russia and China, which they're not necessarily, they're not just enforced atheists. You can actually practice different spirituality and religions. You just can't practice religious extremism like in U.S. funded ETIM in Xinjiang, East Turkestan Islamic movement, because a lot of times religion is weaponized by empires like the United States. I mean, constantly and demonstrably so. So if that's what you mean, I don't think that's what is meant by that. I'm kind of out of the I'm beyond the scope of that story at that point. But after Earth is torn apart by religious differences, the human race teeters on the edge of extinction. And actually, so anyway, so back to the inside. But the intro, it has these images of the Earth being destroyed, right? Which is obviously that's very Western, which is that we're all going to destroy ourselves, right? It's a theme. If you look very closely, if you ever read African and Asian science fiction, it doesn't often project the destruction of everything, all life on Earth, and the end, and climate and nuclear apocalypse. It's actually much more positive. So it's actually the dystopias, I would argue, are actually more. And I have entire streams of just about why the West and capitalist and privileged parts of those places in particular love dystopias, and they keep making dystopias like The Road, right? Is because it is again looking at inside of their own history and their own past and projecting themselves into the future. It's really like it's like we're all wolves and everyone else in the world is a bunch of wolves, and so we all wolf out and kill each other and destroy everything. And so obviously that's just what's going to happen, right? And that's doomerism. Is just like doomerism is really Eurocentrism. It's Western centrism, right? It's Western exceptionalism. It denies the other 90% of the world of agency. It says we rich capitalist white people are going to wreck everything and you can't do anything about it, so we're all going to die, so just give up. Right, or even climate doomerism is it's a similar thing. It suggests that you're the main character, you are the protagonist. The U.S. and Europe are not the protagonists in this story. They can't even run. They're just really on autopilot, being run by their own broken systems. Wall Street is just a runaway machine. There are countries like China that actually can make and set plans and execute. And they have actual autonomy of their people, and the people and the governments actually execute the will of the humans. No, the West is just a bunch of chaotic oligarch emerald diaper babies slap fighting each other. Like that's like Elon banning fucking Voice of America, which cracked me up. Elon is like stomping on its own imperial mouthpieces now. Voice of America is literal. The voice of the U.S. empire. It's a U.S. federal funded propaganda outlet, and Elon banned it off of Twitter, and it's hilarious because he's supposed to be working for these people, but that's the kind of inbreeding and the improper raising of the wolves, creating these mediocre white man children that run it now. And so there's no autonomy in the West, and so there's no actual agency. I would actually argue that there is very little. There's a lot of wishful. I wish I was in control of my destiny, but nobody really is. They're just on autopilot. The West is on autopilot off a cliff into a dumpster fire of their own history, but they're talking about their freedom and their agency and all this bullshit. So, but I don't need to dunk on them this whole stream. And so, and the parents are trying to teach the children after the Earth is destroyed how we're going to do this differently. Actually very interesting, because there's a lot of shows like that. There's a show called IO. There's a show starring George Clooney on Netflix. Can't remember what it's called. They're all about like, we leave Earth and we're going to start we're going to start all over again. It's a very manifest destiny, right? The fact that people still write, the fact that Westerners still write science fiction and they call the places where humans land colonies. It's like, don't you see how cringe that sounds? Why you saw space colony? Did the fact that you have people leaving Earth and starting things called colonies in space suggests you have not learned what you need. You should not have left the Earth. Anytime somebody has a space colony, it's like that was already a failure. You should have learned your lesson on Earth before you left. I made this very strong opinion about it. I said, don't support any space travel. Don't support any Elon multiplanetary civilizational endeavor, because there's no civilization in the West that he is the techno king of, right? Banning all of NBC's journalists. It's funny because NBC is all calling, oh, please don't ban me, Elon. The fact that Elon runs anything suggests that nothing that comes out of the US and the Western world should ever leave this Earth, because what they're going to spread is cancer through the galaxy. So we don't, civilization, it's not really, it's a spreading of barbarism to every planet and every Tatooine and every Endor. Right. So the fact that science fiction like IO, like this show, and that's one of the problems that I have, this is outside the show, has lots of good things. But one thing is the fact that you have space colonies and not space migration or, coexistence or something else, but you still have space colonies, suggests that you're not capable of producing something better than that was on Earth, because you're still colonizers. You're still going around colonize. You just killed everything on Earth, and now you're gonna go somewhere else and you're gonna kill everything over there. You see what I'm saying? You did not learn the lessons that you should have learned, and that's actually, if you really want my hard opinion, I don't think there should not be any Western space travel. I mean, the other people like socialist civilizations with human rights and equality and doing what's right for the masses of the people, protecting human life and collective good, and and stopping empire, and actually having win-win cooperation with people to people, civilization, nation to nation, and people and planet. The Chinese can do space travel. The U.S. and the West, they should never do any space travel. They should just stop. If you want to do that, you should go do some science for some actual advanced peoples. If the Cuban, Vietnamese, peoples of Ghana and Burkina Faso, after kicking out all the colonizers, they want to make space travel, they can do it. You can have Binti and Nieto Corfor can go to space, but nobody from after $450 trillion of plunder from the global South and the East, from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, is paid back from the U.S., from Europe, and all of the richest Western countries. After you pay back all your stolen wealth and you've repaired all the damage you've done, then you can maybe we think about letting you go to space. But until then, you and Elon, you got to sit down in the dirt and the radioactive, PFAS-filled, jet fuel dumped soil that you made and clean that shit up. You clean that shit up and clean all your damage that you've done. Do all your reparations. Then you think about going to space. Now, I mean, not to say that they're going to do that, because again, they can't even control themselves. Elon can't even stop from banning his own, a State Department's mouthpieces off of his platform that he bought, like an idiot. Elon can't even handle getting asked questions by people who aren't even really journalists. They're just propagandists with a blue check mark. That's the only kind of people that run the Death Star satellites of Facebook, Twitter, all of social media. So I don't. These are the people who run the United States, and by extension the Western world. So these people should not ever go to space. If you really want my opinion, it would be disastrous. Unless they want to go to the sun, like Elon, the Democrat and Republican, everyone, all parties, and every Western, the European Union, you can send how many ever Europeans you want take them all, especially the ones that are throwing $40 billion into Ukraine right now, which is most of them. Take all those people, and you can fly into the sun. You can test the airspeed velocity of an unladen Stepan Bandera worshiper. At what temperature does at what temperature does a British imperialist sipping tea while everyone is dying from starvation and freezing this winter, right? Sitting in his warm Windsor Palace. At what temperature does the British skin turn into ash? On your journey towards the sun, like in the show Sunshine, and then you can fly there. You can fly into the sun. But anywhere else, no, you can't fly to the moon, not Mars, no Europa. But you can fly into the sun if you want. I don't think that's a threat. I'm just saying that is an opportunity for science and science fictional space exploration. There's a lot of science to be done in the sun. Europe, you should really look into the sun. I think the cure for COVID, I think the hydroxychloroquine for the Republicans and I think that the proof of Uyghur genocide for all the liberals is somewhere around 2,000 miles beneath the sun's corona. So you might want to investigate. Y'all might want to investigate the sun. Go check it out. It's really nice. It provides all of the light that does photosynthesis and also incinerates all of the imperialists. Anyways, so Raised by Wolves though, it's already 1:30, so I should probably be going soon. I'm like kind of just drifting off on my topics, but so I recommend. We're having a lot of fun watching the show. It has lots of other fun stuff. There's scenes where the android is. When I was going to the supernumerary nipples is that like creatures like pigs and dogs, right? Mammals have more than 2 mammary glands, and so there's a scene where the android has white plastic tubes that coming out of her chest and out of each of her abdominals, that are feeding into these sacs, like they're artificial wombs, like a small gestational matrix of like eight separate pods that have human fetuses growing in them, but the mother is actually like nurturing all 8 at the same time with her fluid. I'm not exactly sure what is happening. I think it's more allegorical. And let me see if I can get a picture of that. Raised by Wolves, mother gestating children. Actually, maybe we get a picture. Maybe we won't. Yeah, that's mother in her war form. God damn it. Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna find it. Yeah, but inside of this room, she is like literally like, it's almost like the children are in they're in a womb that's outside of her. Is a very interesting metaphorical scene. But anyways, and then the children come to term. Many of the children are die and are lost in the childbirth process, which is a thing, and it's very sad. Miscarriages is a thing. It's very difficult. I mean, I've not had one, but there's a lot of things these are part of the process of having children, and one of them is the worry: is my child okay? Am I eating the things that the child needs? Will my child survive the childbirth process? Is a thing, right? Fun fact: if you're black or non-white, and especially black women, your probability of you yourself surviving and your children surviving drops drastically in the racist U.S. healthcare system. But everyone, no matter, there's worry about the child all the time. And then the child's born, and then trying to teach the child, don't go into these areas, and so the part of the story is the mother trying to be protective and stop the child leaving the mother's home, and kind of holding the children close to her, because the world is dangerous. The world, like, you could fall off a cliff. There could be dangerous wild animals. There could be wolves out there, right? And so so a lot of that plays into it. But then it's kind of like, and then at one point the father's like, but mother, if we don't ever teach them to hunt for themselves, we won't last forever. And if we don't teach them the skills that they need, they won't survive. And so there's this dialogue there. And this is all parental. This is all stuff even me and Holly, we have to talk about this. Like, what do we need to teach our kids so that when, I was like, recently, I'm just kind of making it more personal again. When I was, like me, the kids, like we're doing all kind of stuff. So we're doing work in the garden. We're trying to do indigenous, decolonized, pluricrop gardening. We have kalo growing between sweet potatoes and all kind of stuff like that. I have a whole thread about that. I recently put up there on the Discord. So if you join the Silver Spook Discord, you get access to even more behind the scenes Silver Spook content, including our whole pluricrop garden is one of the Patreon posts with all kind of different food, all growing from indigenous Hawaiian, indigenous Asian, indigenous Turtle Island foods growing, and how that process is part of our raising of our children. So here's some pictures of the food that we were growing. And so like, and we're doing all this work, and we're doing a lot of work to raise all of these. This is Hawaiian chili pepper. That is that's a sugarcane is actually endemic or indigenous to Hawaii for the last 1,600 years. Indigenous Okinawa sweet potato, coconut, all this kind of stuff. And while I was working really hard in the garden, like doing a lot of pickaxing and it's a lot of they're doing that too in this show. It's a settlement that they're in, growing these new crops, trying to figure out what's healthy and what's not. And and also like I'm not a farmer. Like I don't know how to do these things. I'm a computer programmer from a big mega city called Honolulu, right? And so also I'm having to learn myself to teach the kids what this is the things that they need to do. But then my body is like suddenly getting sore. I remember I was like painting I was like, I gotta get this roof painted. So this part of it is a parental urge. I'm like father is like, I gotta make sure that the roof doesn't rot and the kids don't get dripped on and the roof starts rotting. Then we're gonna, where will the kids sleep and we'll get sick and we'll have mold and all these problems. So I gotta fix the roof. And then these things I can do. How can I be useful? There's a point where father's like, when he discovers that mother has superpowers, basically, his male as like I can defend and I'm strong and I can fight things. He suddenly feels like inadequate and feels useless. So that's another urge that dudes can feel, and so he kind of like reacts in weird ways to that. And he's like, I have to be useful I'll teach these kids how to hunt and I'll do these other things because I'm not useful in this way. And so. But that's one of my urges. I'm going to get up on the roof and I'm going to make sure that the abode in which the children are sleeping is all fixed up because this is an older house, not a new house, and it's really expensive. It costs so much money. So a lot of time I spend is just worrying about money. Oh my God, we're going to get the money. Please help us out with money. And so, because you need money to survive and make sure your children eat and exist under capitalist structures, right? That we still live under. So I'm like, okay, we got to fix this. I'll fix the roof myself. But I'm like. Spent so much time and I started like hurting my body doing some of these things because I was doing so much. I like my arm started having arthritic my cartilage is rapidly dissolving in my 40 years of age, and I'm like I'm not an android, but my actuators are starting to glitch up and I can't do the work, and I'm like down for the count, taking gross amounts of Tylenol and not gross amounts, just like having to take a lot more ibuprofen and massaging my sores with Tiger Balm, and just my body's not what it used to be. And I'm like, I had to stop. Like my kids, I need to teach the kids everything. I mean, we're teaching the kids, but I need to teach the kids even faster, because what if my body is not capable of like fixing this house, maintaining this roof, maintaining the garden? What if they don't have the skills that they need to survive the capitalist world that we're going to come in? How are they going to pay for their car? How are they going to fix their car? Because I don't do a lot of car fixing, but I know how to like where to take it. How are they going to know how to interact with the banking system, with the economic system? How are they going to know how to, do their own barbecue, fix their own toilets, paint their own roof? And so I had to make sure I had this whole thing where I was kind of not this whole thing, but I was like, my body was not functioning. So I said, okay, kids, you got to learn this. You got to learn how to hunt. I didn't know we weren't hunting, but like, you got to learn how to you got to learn how to do the things that I was doing more of. And I wasn't, you haven't learned it yet. Maybe you're not ready to learn, but you got to learn it now, because what if I break down? What if mommy and daddy break down? Like, we're just not here for some reason. I don't know, disaster, knock on wood, we're not going to have any, but our bodies are going to break down. These are not permanent. And so you need to know all these things. And so there's a lot of the Raising with Wolves that kind of deals with that part too, where it's like, and that's the emotional arc and the trajectories of the characters. Is like, father is like, kids, you're gonna learn how to kill. And mother's like, no, violent. They're emotionally sensitive, and we don't want to scar them from having to experience this violence. And the father's like, they have to learn how to hunt sooner or later, or they won't survive. There's not enough calories for them. Our crops we have radioactive alloy like alien pineapple looking plants, and it's nutritional, but it's radioactive and it kills them. The soil, there's other plants in the trees, but they have their own. They have arsenic and they have hydrocyanide in them, and they can't eat that. The kids need to hunt, and it's like the kids are all vegans. Like, I'm not gonna hunt. I can't. I can't hurt them. Thing. Oh my god. It's like, oh my god. You have like vegan kids. No, it's just like normal. You don't want to hurt. You don't want to kill things because it's like it's another living thing. But then it's like, well, if you want to survive, you're gonna need to eat that pig. It's always sad. I remember, no, kids are, it's so cute. Look at the piggy. Look at the piggy. And then one day, and then uncle, my brother had to slaughter one of the pigs. And it's kind of sad. It's even sad for my brother. We had to slaughter the pig that they had raised for like years and years. But it's like, you only survive because you are cycling the energy of other living things, which is that's a hard lesson that parents have to teach children as well. Which is that for you to live, other living things die. For you to live, other living things have to give up their life force, and you are part of that cycle. And that's part of the most recent episodes that we were watching, and the parents are both trying to teach their kids in different ways. Like, we have to do this thing because we are part of nature, and nature isn't always nice. That's not a lesson that the West wants to learn. Right? They would love to be outside and away from, and in some kind of abstract mathematical plane out of nature. Now they're learning it the hard way. The non-indigenous sort of learning it the very hard way right now, right? Which is that you are not outside of nature, and you will not survive. And a lot of the solution is let's be pretending. Let's LARP as Indians. Not pretending, that's the wrong word. No, let's put on feather headdresses and pretend to be indigenous people. That's not the right approach. A better approach would be to like listen and learn from, and actually try to indigenize, and not in a co-opting sort of way, an appropriative way. And some people are just like, that's it, it's the end. I'm gonna doom her out and just smoke and drink it all and just ignore it. And some people are, but you are part of nature, and you have to accept these realities. And that's a hard lesson that you have to teach. Indigenous people teach children that, I think the white imperial vegan types that use caring for animals as a sheep's clothing to wear to cover up the wolf inside them that cheers on the death of Iraqis and Vietnamese and doesn't care about the black enslaved people in their prisons as they eat their vegan cheese, and that the vegan is like it is like the freedom and democracy and human rights coming out of the Obama mouth, right? And then I care about animals, right? I care about my doggy and my kitty, but not that human black and brown person in the ghetto that I'm disenfranchising, and actually have those indigenous people that actually have the life ways that could save all the doggies and the kitties that I'm going to kill with my capitalism when all life goes extinct, right? So then, like, because the imperial, the stormtrooper wolf vegan is an outgrowth of failure to have actual education and indigenous education. And part of that is to learn that you are part of the natural world. That doesn't mean you have to do subsistence farming and hunt everything that you eat, but you have to like learn that that's part of life. And you can be an artificial intelligence programmer, and our kids can do that, but they also have to know that we are part of a life cycle. They have to witness some very tragic death of an animal, and it was like, this is part of why we encourage the pigs to move on. Thankfully, we have a new little puppy, and I should probably end soon because it's already late. But we have a little puppy, and the newest member of the Silver Spook family is a little puppy that runs around. And his Hawaiian name, it means bud of a plant. But he also kind of he has a little doggy that like I think he could play basketball like Air Bud, and he has like a little buddy, so it's very cute. And And so like, you know, I don't know, there's a kind of like you know, Holly and I, we're not planning to have any more kids. Like, our bodies, I need a cybernetic back so I'm not in excruciating pain from my herniated, you know, lumbar and cervical discs, thanks to too much, the personal color plantation called the football industry that I was participating in, and too much contusions and smashing into other 16 to 25-year-old dudes has caused my body to be more damaged than it would have been, among other things. Bodies just fall apart over time. Like androids run out of milk white blood and oil, and their parts degenerate. Their brains go into digital psychosis over a certain amount of time, like dementia for humans. And like bodies just don't last forever. And so like we're not at a place to have more of these kids, but it is a thing where we have to like make sure that we are, you know, raising as best as possible our kids. So part of this was a stream to help if people, I know some people are currently or may be in the near future raising some more kids. So some of this is like trying to help those people get some advice. And this is a show you might want to watch just to think about some of those topics. And if you like science fiction, this is one of those shows. If you like Alien is very much, I call it proto cyberpunk. It's very Alien and Aliens are different, like some OG cyberpunk, even though that's not the whole theme. But it deals with giant mega corporations running the world, human and robot interfaces, cybernetic, artificial intelligence, androids, all that stuff is all inside of Alien. And so if you like it for that sense, I would recommend watching it. But also, like, you know, it's not an easy question to answer. How do we raise our children without wolfing out on them? Right? What do we need to do? What does it mean to raise a child? What does it mean to rear the future? What is it? Because the children are the future. You know, that's the point of this topic thumbnail. Like, how do you raise your children, but also raise them to be part of actually making the world a better place, and not just in a platitude way, but like, I mean, in a complete dialectical indigenous way. How do we, from indigenous wisdom perspective, for me personally, how do we actually live up to our ancestors, our kupuna from 1850s Hawaii, or 700s AD Hawaii, or 1200 BC Vietnam, which and China that we descended from, and how do we and 2022 Vietnam and China, which we are related to. How do we like live up to that, and how do we have our kids continue the legacy and not go backwards, right? And repeat the mistakes of our parents and our parents' generation and our parents' school systems. And so you know, I think that like you know, and it's not an answer that I can just give you. That's it, you know. But what I can tell you, I can honestly tell you, I know it's not easy, because people be like, Silver Spook, but I gotta go to work at Jiffy Lube, or I gotta go to work at the Walmart, or I gotta go work at the university. I gotta go because I gotta make money, because I gotta pay my bills. And I'm like, I totally understand that, you know. Silver Spook, I can't home educate my kids because I don't know math and English that well. I don't have a degree in childhood education. University degrees don't give you anything that you don't already. I'm not saying that because I like Peter Thiel and his bullshit. He says that kind of stuff for different reasons. He's a garbage imperialist billionaire, but there is no education in the Western world. There's nothing that they could give you in their educational facilities that isn't a net negative. There are some techniques that you could learn, like about certain styles of repetition, and what to do with, you know, how to here's some worksheets that you can get, like this is mathematics addition, like this is the series you should go through. But a lot of this stuff is not as complicated as a school system it makes it out to be. They make it more complicated for job security under empire, for the teachers that they need to keep in their constituent little boxes called being teachers for the rest of my life till I die, right? That's really the goal of school. Like my parents are professional educators, both of them, and they will admit that that's actually what it's for. We all know this. If you're an educator, you don't know that, or you're not ready to admit that, then you need to think about, like, you know, you gotta do some self-analysis. I taught in public, private, and charter school. You have to go get your rubric. You need to do some teacher evaluation. You need to do some auto teacher evaluation if you think that that's all it's about. Anyway, I'm not gonna go off on that anymore. So the short answer is that like we don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that like the learning how to thinking about how to think, or like not thinking about how to think, learning how to think. I mean, Luna Oy would say that, right? Like dialectical education, which is, you get into that. It's another weeds to untangle to get that story out. As Kalakaua Ka'ea would say, there's a lot of weeds to untangle that have all the empire has grown into the garden, the jungle. The wolf jungle has grown into the indigenous garden, and we have to speak stormtrooper language. So it's hard to untangle when I say dialectical materialism. But there is thinking about how to analyze information coming in, thinking about where the source of information is coming from, right? Thinking about history is not, there's a Black Power Media video that I also like echo often, like, which is that history is not a thing that we're finding. We're just looking at, like, we're dissecting a frog, or we're just observing rain dropping, and we're just coming, as Kalakaua also said, empire succeeds by making it itself invisible, right? Like it's just consensus reality. It's just normal. It's just it's just the curriculum, right? Not asking who wrote the curriculum. Why did they write that curriculum, right? How do we know what you're teaching at this university, in this history class, in this English class, in this social studies class, biology, sociology, right? In this third grade social studies class. Why are we reading this Shakespeare book? Why don't we learn about Shakespeare's racism and colonialism in The Tempest, where he justifies continued terra nullius extermination of indigenous people through characters like Caliban? Why don't we learn the truth about Jefferson having 260 slaves, being a child rapist? Why don't we learn about Andrew Jackson, the Hitler of America? Right? The tendency in academia is not to make waves. It's to be very, and it's to be a very placid, we're just nerds looking at data, having polite civil discussions, right? But the thing is that history is where politics happens. It is a fight. It's a history war, right? That's why Black Power Media is another place you can get actual education, because they will acknowledge Kalakaua Ka'ea, like, why are we even talking about the United States bringing democracy? What you when you say that the United States brought a democratic country to Hawaii, you are already doing the work of the empire. So it's like and so it's the work of education is gonna be emotional. If you're learning something, if you're an empire that is breaking everything and everything is normal, that's the worst condition to be in, because that you're enabling the status quo, which is mass evil. There should be conflict in the school, in education. There should be people questioning, why are we learning this? How are we learning this? Who said that? Who wrote that in that book? Who is this publisher? What textbook? Who is Harvard? Who is the American Medical Association? Why are we learning that about health? Why are we learning about, why are all the black women dying in the hospital? Who is that? If this classroom isn't full of interrogation of existing narratives and curriculum and outrage, what the fuck? If the children aren't feeling that in that classroom, you're not teaching anything of value, actually. Certainly if you're in an educational institution that's surrounded by imperial narrative, which you are. If you're in the Western world. If you speak English, you're in the Anglo-Saxon branch of the Roman Empire and all the other Romance languages. So that doesn't mean you have to be constantly fighting with your children, but fighting in the classroom. But like, when it relates to everything in the Western world, everything has to be interrogated. That's what I do on my streams, is I constantly be interrogating everything that everyone is saying. What do all these English words mean? What is civilization? What is the future? What is dystopia? This is a bunch of bullshit to make people doomer out, and it's about imperial Western collapse realism. This is not just a show about how fun it would be to fight mutants with a Fallout, handmade shotgun. This is not just a video game. This is politics. Right? And it has to be constantly interrogated. Everything has to be interrogated. So if you aren't interrogating everything that everyone is consuming, I know it can be tiring. So you don't have to do it all day, but part of the education has to involve interrogation of every aspect of the empire that you live in, pop cultural, historical, economics, everything. And you're not going to have the solution right now. You're going to have the best that you got. But that's part of what actual dialectical thinking is taking in massive amounts of information. It's actually what the Chinese and the Vietnamese do. You just don't see it because they don't let you see how China is more democratic and more what they call a more boisterous and active and democracy than any Western country, including the United States and any European country. You just don't see it. They just tell you narratives about how everybody's marching in lockstep. No, they're constantly having discussions and dialogue, more dialogue. They're having more heated debates about lots of things. They're not really heated debates. They're having active, actual intellectual discussion, not just screaming about whether we can say N-word or not. Right? That's the kind of discussion they have in the West. And should we give $800 billion or $850 billion to the military? That's the only kind of discussion that they have. They have no real discussion in the West. The discussion in the West looks like, at what time are we going to end this motherfucking empire and start the Indigenous Federation of socialist, land-backed fucking Anishinaabe, Sioux, and Lakota peoples? That's the question. But nobody was talking about that. They're just debating about whether, Elon did something that's, totally cancelable or just funny today. There's no education. There's no debate. The Chinese have much more interesting discussions than any Western country. I've listened to some of them that I can get access to. But you should be having those kind of discussions with the children. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? What does the rest of the world have to say? What do the indigenous people have to say about this topic? What do the indigenous people have to say about this state of the United States? What not just we acknowledge we're on the land of this Sioux people. Where are the Sioux people? James Cameron, where were the Lakota people when you made that fucking statement? James Cameron, speaking of aliens, about the Lakota people are all gone and their society's over, and they would have fought so much harder if they knew how bad it was. Blah 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 blah. Where were all the indigenous people that you are appropriating to make Avatar? Right? Where were they all paid and supported materially? It's just it's a question. Multi-millionaire Hollywood beloved figure who made some movies that I like Terminator and Aliens. But it's where, right? It's how do we know these things that we know? Where is the conversation? The internet. So many people are pointing out. I was watching the recent Black Power media, and the black community in the outside the United States, in the rest of the diaspora in the UK, were the United States, you guys are so. This is the Africans in UK were you guys are not connecting enough with the rest of the world, and that is a problem. But that's not just a problem for the United States. It's also in Europe, and it's also in anywhere that's been colonized. It's what does the East actually think about this topic, right? Let's ask Carl Jha. What does he think about the freedom and democracy and human rights of the United States, right? Not just the Chinese in the diaspora, because a lot of those are fucking sellouts to the U.S. empire. They're like Andy No motherfuckers. They're like they're like Marco Rubio. Don't listen to the Cubans in the United States. Listen to the Cubans in motherfucking Cuba, right? Don't listen to the China. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with the diaspora, just in general, but you ask a high profile person inside the United States of an ethnicity that has come in. And they have made a lot of money and they're very visible. Chances are they want somebody who is in there to overthrow their socialist country. Like Andy's parents, like Ted's parents, Ted Cruz, right? All those like Kamala Harris's the wolf mom that raised Kamala to be Obama too. And run the empire and mass lock up all of the black and brown people in California, right? Which is what Kamala did. So you have to interrogate, not just ask not to say that, black people inside the United States and which ones are you asking? And now don't ask Obama what he thinks. I'm going to tell you, he's from Hawaii. Don't listen to that motherfucking guy. I went to his school. I know what he knows. I know what he thinks. I know who he is. I know what beach he likes to surf at, Sandy Beach. I used to surf. I used to body surf there all the time. Do not listen to that guy. That guy is total. That is the ultimate wolf in the sheep's clothing. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, that's a just like there's more like rules of thumb and like meta. Not meta, but there is a guiding. What exactly to learn is not really the most important thing. The exact information is not the most important thing. It is the narratives and the worldviews that are constructed, taking various bits of information and putting them together in a story. What stories are you telling your children is really more important thing. What worldview are you constructing in the mind of your children? Everything is political. Nobody can know every piece of information in the universe. Nobody can have all of human history from every person, all of the billions of people that have ever lived and all their perspectives all at the same time. You can only have one lifetime and one narrow, tiny sliver of history that is built into a particular narrative. Is a narrative that you're telling one that is a story that you're telling your children ultimately through the education that you should be giving your children? Is that story that you're telling a story that is in the spirit of trying to give them the truth, or are you trying to benefit yourself, your class, your skin color, your country above others by twisting the narrative and twisting history to that extent? Are you being a coward or being lazy by just giving what the United States and what the Western capitalist, imperialist, racist world has handed down to you and then washing your hands of the responsibility? Or are you trying your best to investigate in a dialectical way of listening to other people, holding hands with the rest of the world and all of your human family to investigate, and non-human family as well, listening to the plants, listening to the kalo, and when they sprout their new children, and when they hold back, right? And when the pigs decide to have many pigs and when they hold back, are you listening to all of that? Or are you ignoring the rest of your human family? Taking whatever your wolf empire has fed you, or are you gonna like try your best and try to give your children the best opportunities to actually make the world a place that is win-win cooperative, that is a garden, a real garden, not colonizer Burrell's garden. Yeah, anyway, I feel like I've made my point. So, it's a good time to end. It's already 2. Sorry, my computer's starting to crash. So anyways, I hope that has helped answer some of those questions. Long story short, I think the show's pretty good. I recommend watching it. Watch this video. Thanks, thanks Cornel West for showing up at the university. I was talking about university, but I'd say why, you gotta pay so much money to go see these events. You can why I gotta pay so much money for? I mean, you gotta pay some money, but it's just like, wow, so expensive to go to some of these big time events. Are you giving your speeches for your own? I think Black Power Media brought that up. Am I going to this university? Am I going to this talk, this prestigious organization, because I'm so full of myself and I want to increase my career, or do I actually care about the thing? Do I actually live by the things that I'm saying? That's a trap. That is a trap for those people who are trying to educate themselves and others. Is how much am I being bought off by this entity that I'm speaking at, right? Whether that's a university, some big talk, some big channel, some big, Anyways, Neofeud is a game that is about not being bought off. It's about, it's about not being a sellout like those motherflacking Lambo flying, rich douchebags in Coastlandia's Stratoplex. Neofeud is a game about all these topics. It is a cyberpunk adventure game in the vein of Blade Runner with an overlay of Game of Like Thrones political intrigue. It is a game that's on sale for the next 42 hours and 6 seconds. And it is also like Disco Elysium with more cyberpunk characteristics. It's like Valhalla, but not a bartending game. And also, you can get it on itch and also on Steam. Consider supporting us through Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud, at Ko-Fi, and through direct support. And if you want more straight up decolonize it, none of this decolonize my education. Decolonization means land back. Decolonization means decolonators. You play this game and you watch real decolonization historically in Vietnam, right? It's called it's called kicking capitalist colonizers' butts out of Vietnam in retro arcade game glory. I'm not advocating for anybody to do that. I'm just saying that's what happened in Vietnam. Anyways, also don't forget that you can also check out Holly's book, which is a book. Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. Speaking of religious people, science fiction shows. Well, that's not science fiction, but religious people and religious traumas and problems with it, and also colonizers. This is a book. Holly, who is now is my partner, and so we're trying to recover from evangelical Protestant Christian traumas and wolf rearing, let's say. And it is a book that is about critiquing that culture and is it's free, or you can throw us some money when you pick it up. You can also get support. I mean, as I said, at patreon.com/Neofeud. I'm trying to work on. I'm still interrogating like who wants to be part of Silver Spook University. If you do, then you can. I might. What does that mean exactly? It just means kind of like having a more easily searchable catalog of the literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of content I've put out. I mean, I literally write a book a week, and the total amount of like words that I put out per the amount of streaming I do in a week, it's literally a book. It's like a 200-page book. I actually have calculated it. So now I'm trying to not repeat too much, but I mean some things do need to be repeated, but it's a lot. So all that content, if people really want it, will be I'm thinking about cataloging it, and it might be a benefit on top of Patreon supporters, including when you become a patron, you get access to the Silver Spook Discord and talk to the really cool community. That's the one place you can get education, is from the Silver Spook community. They know they're all Silver Spook approved, based as fuck, and also, not diseducational, not capitalist miseducation and conditioning. And you can also get access to behind the scenes on stuff that we're working on, like that garden that I was showing you, and other things that we're doing. And know that you're supporting Native Hawaiians here in illegally U.S. occupied Hawaii. Also, you can follow at Silver Spook Games at octodon.social, where we have my social media presence on the Mastodon. Everyone's moving there. I was already there. I just want to keep saying that. I was already there. Everyone who's showing up now, you're late to the game. I was already there like 5 years, like literally, I think it was like 6 years ago, actually. And tweeting lots of stuff, including like, the VOA. Anyways, I won't look at my own Mastodon right now. You can also follow Silver Spook Games on Twitter at Silver Spook Guy, and you can follow Silver Spook for the games related stuff at Silver Spook Games. On Facebook, you can follow Silver Spook Games and Silver Spook on Instagram, if you would like to do that. Is my stream dead, or am I imagining things? I think my YouTube just died. Anyways, so you can follow that. Also, you can follow Terminus C, is the account for Terminus Cyberstar. Terminus Cyberstar is a cyberpunk RPG game like Deus Ex and System Shock. And Terminus Cyberstar is also a game that I'm the content director and lead writer of. And it is nearly completed, with the exception of the content optimization and the testing. And so if that's the kind of games that you like to play, this is a game that you might want to check out. So that's that. Terminus Cyberstar. You can also follow, of course, Holly. Holly is Holly at the Tech Fairy is mod, voice actor, and partner here at the Silver Spook Cooperative. Holly is a producer and writer and mod for Xanattack, or K-Nix Lounge, and also Holly is a writer and educator, parent, and primary caregiver. Speaking of parenting, so Holly is doing a lot of that around here for little doggies and puppies and human children, humanoid children that we have here. Somewhat. I hope we're not all full Android. Not sure though. Let me check my. I don't think I have white blood. I think I have white blood. I know I said I'm part Stormtrooper, but I think most of my blood is red. Anyways, not blue blood, that's for sure. I am not the diva from Fifth Element. So Holly is also tweeting important stuff like that, and also Holly is writing books, like I said. All right, and but yeah, if you are interested in that whole Silver Spook University, before I go, if you are interested in the whole Silver Spook University concept, feel free to give some say so, or if you were like, yeah, I would like that, and I might consider doing it. I'm not. Holly has already helped me put together some ideas for how to break it down into all of the content that is broken into like artificial intelligence, indigenous actions, Marvel commentary, Marvel and Empire, and I have all these ideas for how all those streams might be broken down. Star Wars critique, and imperialism in space science fiction. Red Hill related struggles, like the U.S. military poisoning our water, and I was having it all broken down. And so if you do, you can respond to this Twitter thread or respond in the Discord, and you can respond in any of those places, because what you say may impact whether or not that happens. And yeah, thank you so much to all these people on. Don't forget Neofeud is on sale. I gotta keep saying it. See, we're not only education. We're Silver Spook is indigenous, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist activism cooperative. It's also an educational cooperative where we're teaching our own children and everyone else around the world as much as possible. And we're also a professional game making, art making, interactive media and art making cooperative, if that's what games are basically. And so I gotta keep saying Neofeud is on sale because that's what supports what we do here. And so also thank you to all these people who directly support us through Patreon. It is always massively appreciated. We can't continue to do this work. See, everyone, if you're a professor but you're on this list, you have a get out of being in a Imperial Stormtrooper free card. Okay? But if you're not on this list and you're not on this list and you're not at least supporting indigenous people concretely and directly, while working for a corporation, government, or educational facility for the U.S. or any Western country, you're doing it wrong, and you get the Silver Spook ire. You get the Silver Spook, frowning sadly and shaking Silver Spook's head emoji. That's what you get, like this. Tisk. Tisk. Anyway, I don't say tisk. That's just a thing that people type into a computer sometimes. Anyways, I think that's the end of the stream. Have a good one. We'll see you later on in the evening. We'll have some more Neofeud 2 sneak peeks. And yeah. Thanks again, Holly, for moderating. And keep a mirror stage polish, be excellent to each other, and raise the future, which is the children. That's the most revolutionary.